Except it's on, look, see?
Slow motion to switch around.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole for Monday, April 24th, 2023. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Present this evening, we have Mayor Hedrick, Deputy Mayor Depot, Councilor Carter, Councilor Sheffield, Councilor Norris, Councilor McCabe, and City Clerk Bakura.
And Finance Director UAS is off today, so he's not attending. All right, thank you. New business or referrals. The city budget presentation, first one up is planning. Leslie? That's on page 43. That's the overview. Actual budget gets into page 37, 38. And these are informing.
Good evening. So the planning portion of the budget is actually fairly short. There's, obviously the personnel. But I think that what you'll find, and I suspect what you'll have the most questions on, is in the operating expenses in terms of contractual services. Those are, some of that is carryover from last year where we have not billed out because lawsuits haven't settled, or we didn't get, or in some cases they're lower because we didn't have lawsuits where we thought we might. The biggest thing that, the other two things that go into contractual services are it's about $30,000 for Birch Plain Creek and $30,000 for Thamesview Park. We have some grant money, but there's also oftentimes where we need to give matching funds, or we need to do something that is not covered by the grant. So we want to be sure that we can get everything done that we need to get done preferably in the order we need it done, so we can actually complete projects. The other piece of that is that we, as I'm sure you know, we have been looking at changing the zoning regulations or parts of it. We have found it to be, when I say we, I mean the commissioners and people who want to do business here have come to us, and they want to develop here. And we have, I think in my experience, where we are right now is we have a real need to have a very an organized and deliberate meeting of the residents, other property owners, business owners, with people who professionally know how to draw, understand how cities work. And so what we want to do is have some people call it a design charrette. You have information in your packet. By the way, our apologies for the late delivery of your packet for our department. We had copier troubles, so happy to answer any questions. But what we want to do is to have, we want to hold a design, it's like a design workshop, but very intensive over very short period of time, different than the workshops that we've had down at the park with economic development. We want to be able to have, with the way these charrettes work, just briefly, is we want to be able to have professional renderers and people who understand and have gotten information ahead of time from us on the demographics, the economics of the city. And what they do is they put together, and we'll do so with our assistants to try and keep the prices down as much as we possibly can, and have informational sessions for the public in the largest sense of the word. You all would be certainly asked to please be there and contribute. And as I said, all residents, all property owners, people who just have an interest or are curious, with lots of other specialists. And it is this convening of people who know stuff and people who think they know stuff and people who want to know stuff. And so there are lots of conversations that go on. There is excuse me, there is feedback as ideas get drawn out. And when I say drawn, I mean literally drawn pencil on paper. And there are feedback loops every time somebody new comes to one of the renderers and they say, well, that looks great, but, you know, it's actually not flat like that. What you've drawn, it looks flat on a map, but it's actually a cliff. So there's constant feedback. And to give you an idea of what happens and sort of the order in which things get done.
Just staple together the examples for the charrette in your packet, and it starts with this page.
This is the packet that's at your desk.
And 1, 2, 3. It may be the 4th item down, if that helps.
So just to show you, often it will literally start with, it's almost like crayon on paper. It's literally just a sketch. It's putting ideas down on paper. Sometimes it's putting words down on paper or shapes. Anything to convey to the designers what our residents and our property owners and people who have come out to voice their opinion, what it is that they would like to see in a certain place. Okay, so it's really, really basic. And then it turns into something, and these are from different projects, the things that I'm showing. I'm just showing you sort of the different kinds of renderings and how they start, how they become, what the iterations are. So, and then you get a plan where people have actually gone out onto the streets and measured things if they need to, looking at where it makes sense to put new buildings, how high could they be, how wide should they be, what kind of presence should they have on the street, and starting to add a little bit of color in every sense, a little bit of life to the image. And then you start to look at before and afters. And this image is, the top image is what one of the renderers at a charrette that I was involved with, the top picture is an image of what it looked like when we were there. And out, took pictures, took that picture, that's what it looked like. And then based upon the feedback from everyone who came, and these were hundreds of people that showed up to these, The bottom picture, which you can see, is, it's an image. It's not a, it's not a photograph, it's not an actual after. It is, this is what it could be, and it starts, these tools start to get people to think about what kinds of changes we could have.
I'm just curious, because
Yep.
I see the date on here is 2007. Did it ever get anywhere close to that after picture?
There are two different projects, but the 2007 project, yes, absolutely did move forward. It became that was in Hamden, it became the first municipal-wide set of zoning regulations that incorporated the principles that get you to this. It was the first in the state, and it continues to be so. It's not the only one in the state. Several have followed, and there was a model code working group for the state legislature working on how to incorporate those principles into zoning regulations on local levels just this past year.
Deputy Mayor Depot.
Well, I don't want to interrupt the presentation or the
ahead.
budget or, so I just want to say, and this is more a note for the mayor, but I think it's a little confusing to get a presentation with last minute, a whole pile of documentation at the same time that we're looking at the budget. Because I feel like I probably will think of questions later. But I have a few questions about this, which is, briefly, what's the difference in what we've already done? We've done workshops. What's the difference between that and a charrette?
It's a great question. What a charrette is it is based upon design. It is based upon it depends on how much you put into it. I've worked on charrettes where we have flown people in from all over the country, and they're experts in their field, and it is without a doubt more than the city of Groton can spend on reasonably, and I would never ask. But you can have anything from transportation and traffic engineers that come. It's usually anywhere from 3 to 5 days, and I don't expect that we would do more than 4 at the most. And it's a series of feedback loops. It really runs for those 4 days with the professionals in the room working 12-hour days, drawing, going out, measuring, coming back, drawing more, coming back, meeting, having people literally walk by their desk, come to their desk while they're drawing, so that they can see and get automatic feedback loops from the public. So all of this happens in a very intense way, and it isn't about the uses so much. It isn't about what do you want to see in terms of a coffee shop or a bookstore or, whatever, more housing that's, 6 stories high, more housing that's 4 stories high, more housing that's 12 stories high. It's more about what do you want to see, because the idea is that what happens behind that facade changes over time. Let's build buildings and change the zoning regulations so that we can build buildings that can have those changes of use without the changing of buildings every 10 years.
So, looking at this scheduling thing
Yep.
that's this sample, it looks like there's a lot of open to the public and potential for public input, but by all accounts that I've heard, the workshops that we've hosted have not been well attended, or the attendance is similar parties. So we have a lot of people who are already on boards and commissions, already giving their input, you know, talking to the counselors. It's, from what I have heard, it's been the same kind of group of people going to those events. So if this type of project is dependent on public participation, how, it doesn't seem reasonable to me to do a project that requires more participation when we can't even get a minimal amount of participation from residents, either because of scheduling or whatever. And I know that, you know, COVID was a difficult time, but we've had outside workshops, again, not all well-attended, or some, I know that some have been well-attended, but again, by the same group of interested residents that already have the ability to give their input because they're on a board or commission, or they're, you know, comfortable talking to the staff or counselors. So I guess, to me, that doesn't make sense, to move to a model that would require more participation than we already are pulling teeth to get.
So let me give you an example of one of the ways that when you're doing something over the course of 3 or 4 days as opposed to a couple of hours, where you can start to look at how can you overlap things and get, be more innovative than just letting people know we started with that. We found that we were getting people, but I agree with you, they were this, you know, in many cases the same people or people who were already involved. One of the things that when I was working on a charrette in Derby, Connecticut, one of the things we did was we asked the superintendent of schools if we could have the younger kids draw pictures of what they wanted their city to look like. And it was, on the one hand, yes, we wanted their input and we wanted to know what, you know, second graders wanted, but we then put together an art show of their images, of all the pictures that they did, and we told them, you know, we sent home notices with their parents and notification through the school. There's going to be this art exhibit. Your, you know, children in your child's class have all contributed to this, and the kids get really excited because the kids are, you know, like, Mommy, Daddy, you know, come, my work is going to be in an art show. And then you do that art show where you're doing the charrette. Kid can take the parents to the, go see their drawing, but then you have the parents there. And you have staff there. We will absolutely be relying on people to volunteer their time to help us say, hey, you know, what a great picture, you know, Mom, Dad, come see what we're doing, you know, what places to give your ideas on sort of a more adult scale.
So I understand that. That sounds great. We don't have a school that we, as the city council or within the city that we control or can do anything with. What is your plan specific to our population that you would do different to get the involvement that would be required for this type of project? Because the projects that we've done in the past, I have a difficult time moving forward with something like this when we don't have a closure on other things that we've done. So I initially looking at a budget increase in order to facilitate projects like this is difficult for me because we don't have an end date or kind of a conclusion or easy to show results or public participation in the things that we've already planned and some of them executed. And granted, you know I've interacted with Sierra quite a bit. I loved the economic development. I love the direction we're trying to go in, but it seems to me that this process has been long drawn out, and this my initial reaction is we're throwing something else at it to try something new because what we're doing isn't working fast enough or whatever. So what are we gonna do differently to make this work better?
So just to add to this is an kind of an overlapping process. So all of the work that we're doing ties back to the plan of conservation and development that we've updated in 2019. Visioning Thames Street was something that was specifically identified within that plan of conservation and development to do more outreach to kind of gauge what improvements and what things need to be done on the and within the Thames Street neighborhood. That was one project. Then we had a whole nother project focused on resiliency work. So we did outreach and planning for that as well. The charrette ties in our zoning regulations to that plan of conservation and development and starts to bring in some of these pieces as it relates to that zoning regulations and the update that the commission is working on and the type of outreach that needs to happen with the community. As far as how we're going to make improvements moving forward, we're going to be doing a lot more aggressive communications with the community. You guys all know that we now have the digital newsletter that is out, utilizing that, being more flexible with times of when we're able to have hold workshops, having things at certain days between certain hours kind of cuts off certain populations for being able to participate. So we're also looking to really utilize the Greater Groton Community Engagement Platform tool. That way people have more of a convenience to be able to participate in these efforts as they go forward. So we're building and we're doing the planning and coordinating kind of better as we learn more from our public engagement of what we can do to kind of critique it and get more people present. So that's, sorry?
Hold on. Did that answer your question?
I'll have more questions
Okay,
later, but I'm-
Counselor Carter, you have the floor.
So I actually am in looking at this different. I think that this actually is the step that we need. I think this alone is different than what we've been doing as a city. I think it shows residents that this is happening. The majority of us want change to happen, and this is gonna happen. This is what's set forth. You know, if you want any input and you want your take on it, come to the meeting, because this is happening. And I think this sends a strong message that, we've moved on to a different phase, okay? If you didn't engage then, and I was one of them that didn't engage, right? But I do believe that our community is pretty much a matter of fact. This is what we want, meaning that if they know something's gonna happen, if they don't want it to happen, they're gonna show up, right? And I think that this is a good way to put the to put the muscle behind, or to put these would-be investors or the people that actually know what they're talking about kind of in front of us to answer the questions that need to be answered. I think some of the things and some of the developments and some of the proposals that we have set forth is where people kind of like are in shock and they just don't know, and they come and they ask questions, and the questions that they're asking aren't being they're not being met or satisfied with the appropriate answers and appropriate questions that they have. I think this right here kind of puts that at ease. This is what's going to happen. Change is going to happen. We have visuals. We have any concerns, whether it comes to traffic, whether it comes to I can't see the ocean anymore. I can't see the Long Island Sound anymore, or I'm afraid to see the law. Like, what's going to happen? What can we do? I think this sends a strong message that change is going to happen. It needs to be happening, and we're moving on to the next phase. So I think this is different. Alone, when you were just asked, how is this going to be different? I think this is different. I think oh wow, this is really happening. Like, let's get down here. We have 4 days to get down, or 3 days, or whatever you said, to get down here. The questions that need to be answered, if we want answered, they're here for answering. I think that's a good thing. So,
Other councilors, Counselor Norris?
absolutely agree that the more ways we engage with folks, the better. I did a similar project with this. We didn't have any luck going through the schools, so we used our own youth service bureau. We actually had the kids design the park. The kids worked to the project in August. We're already looking to go to council in September for funding for the new park. The reason why I'm bringing this up is I'm also hoping that we start to draw closure on a lot of projects that you're currently working on. There's a lot of work going on, there's a lot of milestones, but it'd be really nice to, at some point, if possible, during fiscal year '23, to turn up with a packet that says, here it is, here's the plan, here's the dollars, here's the timeline, let's move forward. But I agree, the more ways we can engage, the better. I just hope that the timeline on this is not something that gets extended out longer than it needs to. Thank you.
Any other counselors? Counselor Sheffield? And then I'll go to you.
Ladies, I remember, like I said, the tax incremental financing plan was probably the first thing that we had discussed as far as implementing a policy here for development for the city of Groton. Where does this fit in with the TIF as far as how are we going to get, formulate business coming in to take advantage of those things, to develop businesses down on Thames Street? Will this assist in that area to where investment is going to be used and utilized, and, you know, that development part to where this charrette program is going to be that hopefully final piece of the puzzle? Because again, this has been pretty much a 5-year since the TIF was implemented. Are we getting any developers potential that we can grow down here in the city?
I'm really glad you asked that question. We have met with more developers who have come in the last, I would say, 9 months to a year, who want to build serious multifamily housing. There is a push. Groton is now getting the squeeze. We had it starting as people were leaving New York after COVID or during COVID. And so places like Stamford and going down Fairfield County were getting the squeeze to build multifamily housing. From the other side, Providence and Boston. And developers are running out of space. What we don't have regulations, zoning regulations, that allow things like that to happen. And I'll just give you one example, and I am in no way bad-mouthing anyone who has worked on previous sets of regulations or projects. Everyone does the very best they can with what they have, and I can understand the logic behind a lot of decisions that were made. But we now know that we need to do something different. They're not working. For instance, in what's known as the GC zone, the general commercial zone, which is not exclusively, but primarily the northern tip of Thames Street, over Bridge Street, and then up North Street a bit. Right now, if you want to build any residential there, it has to be part of a mixed-use project on a parcel, and you can't build more than 2 dwelling units. So if somebody came in, as developers have come in and met with us and said, I want to build an apartment complex here, they can't do it unless we change the regulations. When you start talking about changing the rules for people's property, as I'm sure that all of you both know and can imagine, people start to get very skittish. What are you trying to do with my property? Are you trying to allow more building, less building, what's that going to do to my property value? Now you're talking about resiliency and flooding and what's going to happen with that. A charrette is a place where all of those things can come together, and we can explain to people about topography and flooding in addition to the ability to change the rules and, sort of on that mundane level. But if we can't change the rules, and if everybody comes to a meeting after the Planning and Zoning Commission, for instance, has spent a year going over zoning regulations, and what they have to go on is the professional experience that I have, which is considerable, but shouldn't be the only thing that they're relying on. Having the feedback from other professionals who can either back up or give other ideas and other alternatives, that's the kind of sort of group work that we should be doing, because I've seen in other aspects where you get to the end of a process, there is a final document, the it has been created, and that's when everybody in the public comes with their pitchforks and torches and says, no, 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 absolutely not. And so then we've got a lot of money wasted, a lot of time wasted. We don't have the input. We haven't gone through the process of helping to really generate and enliven and really put a spark under people and create that capacity for generating input. And so the push to get people to go to a charrette is huge. It is about inviting bankers. It's about inviting small business people specifically. It's about inviting, and some of this is door to door. I mean, the nice thing about the city of Groton is that it's small enough that you can do that smaller grain kind of invitation. Stopping in at some of the businesses and hanging out and talking to the clientele a little bit about what's going on, handing out palm cards, whatever. It's a lot more intensive. The hardest thing there is to do in any of this stuff is grassroots organizing. It is the hardest thing to do. And the only way to shortcut it is to actually go out and do it. And so we will certainly be doing it. Our commissioners will be going out and working on it. We welcome all of you to help us do that. It's not a last-ditch effort. This is where all the other projects have been leading to. We want to put them all together so that we have professionals in the room who can look at these issues at the same time. I think the first time I came and spoke to all of you, I told you my favorite shape was a Venn diagram. This is the Venn diagram activity that then makes this work.
Councilor Piazza.
Part of my lateness. I was listening while I was driving, and I just wanted to respond on, so I haven't, it was going in and out, but I did hear some things about children, maybe teens, something about art. If you could just tell me again, it was kind of going in and out. I was like, what?
Sure, quickly. When I worked on a charrette in Derby, Connecticut, one of the things we did was we had the superintendent of schools there have the grade school students had asked the teachers to organize this, obviously, and had grade school students draw pictures of what they wanted their city to look like. And then we did an art show of their pictures, not at the school. The charrette was taking place at a different site, and we did an art. We had a gallery showing for these kids' artwork, and it was, bring your parents, and it was a way of getting the parents in the room as well as getting the kids excited about designing a city.
Right. I heard part of that. So I think it's really exciting because I'm chairing community development and working on art in the city and so forth and so on. And I've also just been meeting up with a gentleman, Jean Guillemet. He's from Haiti, but he lives here in the States and wants to give back. And so I think he would be very excited if we could collaborate together. And it's about getting youth and art into the city. So I would really like to meet up with you guys and discuss his vision. It's a really great vision.
Do you have anything else on your budget before I open it back up for questions?
I'll stop for now.
Okay. Counselor Sheffield, did you have a question?
As far as the budget, the numbers go, or are we gonna, or can we discuss the charrette, or is that, because I wasn't sure if you
No,
wanted to go
can-
back to the
you
budget
have-
or not.
You have the floor.
Okay.
And
Back to the charrette, when would you like to begin this endeavor? Since it's sort of, it
As
seems
soon
like
as
we-
you approve our budget.
Okay, so it's
I'm
part
not
of,
trying to be flip.
oh, all right, so
Wait.
this is gonna be part of it in here?
Yes.
Oh, okay, because I wasn't sure if this was outside the scope, but okay,
so it's one of the three things of the increases.
okay.
The charrette is one of them, Birch Plain Creek is another one, and Thamesview Park is another one. And we're putting aside money on to continue projects.
Okay.
So, and I do want to keep it at the budget level. I don't want to get into, Leslie needed to explain what a charrette was,
Okay.
but we will have Leslie back later to talk more about charrettes.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments, Deputy Mayor Depot?
Thank you. I do see your sketch for proposal for Thamesview Park. I am really looking forward to getting something done there to make it a usable park. Right now, when you drive by, you just look and you're like, oh, open space, which is great, but it'd be good to get something there for people to actually spend time there. So I love the potential for that project. Are we looking at getting that done within this calendar year, or what's the timeline, do you think, upon approval of your budget, of getting something substantially done at Thamesview Park?
One of the first things we need to do for the upper level is we need to get an A2 survey done, which is just a matter of contact. Depending on how much we think it is, it may have to go out for RFP, but we can have we also have on-call engineers to help expedite things. And we want to do the connection between the Fort Griswold and the park itself. So right now we could all make it across the brick wall, but it's climbing a brick wall. So we want to make a physical connection between those two parks. The state is really excited about it. Is Bill still here? Let's see if he has anything to say on it. But also, we want to be able to put in an amphitheater. And in order to be able to do that, we need engineered drawings because of the slopes and how you need to terrace them, and just looking at how, that's how you do it, so you're doing it right and people don't get hurt.
At the moment, we have a list of milestones, but our timeline is still it's not cemented because we just received the information for the lower part of Thames Street and the grant that we had did with the Connecticut Port Authority. So we're trying to get all that information squared away, up to date, and then we'll be able to have more of a concrete understanding of a timeline of how certain things can happen at the lower level, and then also identifying funding, like Leslie said, for the engineering plans that need to be done for the upper level, and then how that timeline could form. But sorry, we don't have an official timeline, but some
No,
things are
it's
just
okay.
still in the flux.
So, in your budget, going back to the numbers, you have an increase of 39% over last year's budget for office supplies and advertising, and I'm guessing that is planning for the charrette, because that's going to require a lot of marketing probably, and, time to do that. Is that the bulk of that increase? Is that what that's for?
That is the bulk of that increase,
Okay.
yes. And supplies, so that, yes, you've got it.
And then I just want to clarify on the contractual services, so looking back at last year's budget, your estimate for year ended fiscal year '22 was 13,200, but then your actual ended up being 31,850. So this year, the current year we're in, your budget is 70,000, and your estimated year ended is 48,500. When I'm comparing those two, your estimate last year was quite low compared to what your actual ended up being. So can you tell me how you came up with the estimated year ended for your contractual services this year?
For the contractual services, this is a combination of legal services, engineering, things like that, that we've needed for planning and zoning and ZBA. One of the reasons that it was higher the reason that number was high last year is that we were expecting, number one, we were expecting a lawsuit that we didn't get, fortunately, that would have cost us a lot of money. And we did, and we are in the middle of 2 legal battles through ZBA that we have not had to pay out on yet. Those are still pending. I didn't know when those would settle, and so,
Okay.
but I knew that they were happening, so I did feel and continue to feel that it was the responsible thing to do to put it in the budget so we could pay the bill, should it come up then. I'd rather give you, I'm not big on giving money back, but should the bill come in before
Right.
the following year, I'd rather be able to pay the bill.
So then the increase, I agree, better to plan for a potential higher bill. The increase for this year it's almost doubling your budget from last year. So that is the charrette fees. Is that to pay for experts to come in for the charrette? Is that?
The charrette will be, the staffing of the charrette would be twofold. One is we would put out an RFP for it and have responses, and we'll be very clear about what we want. What we don't have in-house, we don't have, 2 or 3 renderers who can draw pictures that really evoke what is reasonable and possible. We don't have people who can, everyone's opined on revitalizing Thames Street. We need some fresh blood with the ability to see and draw, and who are trained in doing urban design and urban planning. So that's the professional piece of the charrette. Then there's also the Birch Plain Creek, $30,000 for being able to do the master plan for that project, any matching funds that we need to be able to matching funds for grants, or if there are any smaller pieces that we need to get done to be able, for instance, Birch Plain Creek, there are places where it's really, it's overgrown, and if somebody's going to go out and assess what needs to be done, it may need to be cut back, and that may be a cost to the city. So again, in the overall scheme of things, I know $30,000 is a lot of money to a lot of people, including me. But in the overall scheme of things, to get projects done on the type of projects we've been talking about, the type of projects we've been working on, the type of projects we've been both assessing and determining what needs to be done and then going out and actually getting that work done, those are the things that we need to be able to pay for. And so, Birch Pine Creek, and then we talked about Thames Street Park as well.
And then I guess another question more for the mayor, which is, I do have specific questions about the projects. Are we going to have another committee of the whole where we talk about that?
Well, so the question is, are you gonna have a committee of the whole prior to the budget vote? Or committee of the whole in general to understand this?
In general?
Yes.
Okay, because
So my intent, so when we talked about the budgets here, I said, you're going to need to prep the council, because they're not gonna understand what a charrette is, because it's never been introduced before, so we needed to do that. Part of our challenges is we've had computer problems, that's not true, had printer problems from Friday until now, and then we weren't able to get everything printed out. That's why you're getting this late. But the intent was to introduce the topic here and then go into detail at a future committee of the whole. Does that answer your question?
yes, yep.
Thank you. Any other, Councilor Sheffield?
If we do not make changes to the zoning regulations, does this charrette meeting gathering becomes meaningless, basically? Because if we can't adjust the regulations to pursue goals that the charrette, should say, conference looks to achieve, and we see those goals, but yet we cannot adjust the regulations, does this create the conference basically moot if we can't change the regulations in the city?
I'd like to maybe phrase that a little bit differently, and then
Okay.
tell me if I haven't answered your question.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
The Planning and Zoning Commission is on board with changing the zoning regulations. They see that it is necessary. They see where there are issues. And these things come up. I gave you the example of only 2 dwelling units, two apartments per parcel basically along Bridge Street and north, and a little bit of Thames, the northern piece. If we aren't making regulations the regulations are the rules that tell us we need to make what we want. We need to be clear about what we want. And that "we" has to be bigger than the Planning and Zoning Commission, certainly has to be bigger than me, has to be bigger than all of us in this room. It is the thing that I've committed my life to going out and making right and doing it well. And it takes a while. It's not a speedy process, but the zoning regulations are the ultimate goal on one piece of this. One piece of this is to make the zoning regulations written so that we get what we want in terms of the built form. But the other piece of this is the economic development piece, where people see that there's change, they see that the city is determined to make things better. The developers that we've had come in all want to build big projects, probably in some cases bigger than the city has an appetite for, but not in every instance. And we also know that people come in and ask for the sun and the moon and the stars and the everything and see where it lands. So we want to know, in part, Sierra and I have a good idea of where it probably lands, but that's not up to us. That's up to all the residents and all the property owners, and getting them together to say, this is where, and there's not going to be a total agreement with that either. This is something that residents vote on. This is zoning regulations are in the sole jurisdiction of P&Z. But then it's also, how do you keep putting those Venn diagram circles together so that they don't get lost, so that we're looking at economic development at the same time that we're looking at increasing housing, and we're looking at walkability and bikeability, and we're looking at sense of place, and we're looking at making parks places that everybody wants to go to and feel safe in. You know, these are, it's doing all of these things, that's where we sort of build that Christmas tree or
Pyramid.
idea, image of what we want the city to be, by having all these pieces that we've been working on up until now come together.
Anything else on planning? Counselor Norris?
Okay, sorry, I had to step out for a while, so in fiscal year 22, we had planning actuals of $149,000. Is it possible to get a breakdown by category of what those expenses were?
What are you asking for?
So the $149,000, what was that spent
Where,
by category?
okay, what page are you on?
I'm sorry, I hope I'm looking at the right page.
I'm hoping you are too.
5,
46.
I'm looking at page 45.
Well, if you look at page 40, if you go to page 46, that may help answer. Does that help answer or no? Because 46 is supposedly the detail to,
What's the planning on the cost center on 45? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So I'm seeing 001 planning on page 45, 149,000. And I'm trying to match it with page, I guess 46.
What I have learned is that there are a lot of things that you add up and then they equal that. So I would actually have to look into what that actually is.
I'm just trying to match it up, and my brain isn't clicking very well this evening, so that's why I see the total is 186,827, but then I try to add up on page 46 what this 149 is, and then that's where I get in a tizzy.
Okay, I can see what I can do.
Thank you.
And,
And then also, I know I missed it, and I sincerely apologize. On page 46, actual contractual services was 31,000. Fiscal year 24, looking for a pose of 135. I think I heard you say something about lawsuits, but if you can, in 5 or less sentences, tell me what doubling from 70,000 to 135 is.
so the money for the charrette,
Yeah,
the money for Birch Plain Creek,
yeah,
and the money for Thames View Park.
thank you.
any other questions? Deputy Mayor Depot?
I just want to clarify, bouncing off of Councilor Norris's question. In the budget, so on page 45, your personnel services operating expenses, those two lines are the entire budget split into those two items.
Right.
Then cost center is the entire budget, but then split into planning and zoning. But that includes the personnel services and operating expenses. Because some of those are in planning and some of them are in some of those are in planning and some of them are in zoning. So it's just dividing out which of those expenses are the planning and zoning departments respectively, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm reading it right. Thank you.
Makes sense to me and you.
Any other questions or comments on planning? Okay, that's it. Thank you, Leslie. Okay, now we will move on to economic development. Starts on page 48. The overview is 49. 50 is the actual breakdown of the expenses. So Sierra?
Okay, so there is a budget change of 12.42% that you would see in contractual services. So line items that are included in that, resiliency planning was not originally under economic development. It was under planning, but through last year, my promotion, or however you want to look at it, we placed resiliency work with economic development, so we are actually starting a line item within economic development to move resiliency planning forward. For the resiliency planning, and yes, Ms. Counselor Depot, we will be back available if we need to follow up on next Monday to come back for more questions to the budget, but also following up with you guys specifically about each project. You guys will see a community resilience, it says for community resilience. These are the recommendations from our community resiliency plan that we completed. We are in the process of reviewing this with leadership and departments to really pinpoint exactly what recommendations we want to move forward and to really understand the city's capacity to accomplish some of the tasks within this. So on that line item, inclusion is for work that is related to that review and ongoing things. For brand management services, we have completed the overall project of identifying a professional brand for the city, doing a community tagline, which is Groton City History in the Making, the newsletter that is goes out digitally. We have a general newsletter and a business update newsletter that goes out. I think those are the main things with that. So all the work behind that, videos, photos, etc., has completed. We are now in the phase where we are doing a meaningful rollout to the community. So we have a website page that is going up, and the funding that is in this budget is to really start to do placemaking activities, things that really tie in what that how we implement that new brand into our community. One of the biggest examples is, I know you guys are probably aware of the really old banners that are on Bridge Street. Those are things that will be replaced with the new logos, and so we're going to be identifying other projects within the city that we can do small improvements that incorporate this logo. So that is what, it's a decrease in the budget request, but the reason why the brand management stuff is still on there is for that placemaking element. Also with the brand management services, base camp is something that will be an ongoing expense. Constant contact is how we send out our newsletters, so those will continue forward. Blue Dot is a business outreach and retention platform that I am using with the Economic Development Commission. We currently have 327 business profiles uploaded within the platform, and we are actively working with the commission to do that outreach. It's a really good tool because all the commission members are able to provide updates for when we do the outreach. That way we can kind of keep track of who's talking to who and where the conversations have left off. So it has been an extremely helpful tool. Public art. We have public art policy and program that we are looking to move forward. Christine, I would definitely be following up with you. We were able to take advantage, or we're taking advantage of a Connecticut Office of the Arts opportunity where they will fund consultants to come and talk to the city. They'll hold two basic workshops. One is an engage workshop just to talk in general about public art in the city and how that can get incorporated here. And then we will move to a 3-day shift workshop where we will actually work with community members on teams to develop community public art projects here in the city. So there is a grant award that we are working on receiving from the Office of the Arts to cover the facilitator fees, and then the increase in the budget reflects some of the materials, and then the actual cost to implement the projects are in there, and these will be relatively small projects that we could do. The next line item that contributes to the increase is our placemaking projects. So in addition to the branding and how we want to incorporate that into the community, we also want to look at things like Bridge Street Gateway, and how we can use tactical urbanism to test a few different road designs with the community, get community impact, and then learn from those lessons as we go. Doing like paint and planters and different things it's a small expense compared to what it would do if we do the complete reconstruction, but the increase reflects some of the work to move forward the Bridge Street Gateway project, as well as bringing back the sidewalk chalk art on Thames Street, doing it at Thames View Park, but also doing an additional location in between Avery Cop House and Puffin's Restaurant. We've heard plenty of feedback of how that is a speedway, and to do something visually to kind of help traffic slow down there. Other increases within the EDC budget you will notice is under professional development. It is for a conference. There is a Congress for New Urbanism information in your packet. It's about one page is about who they are as an organization. Leslie can maybe speak to a little bit more, and then also about this annual conference that they hold, that Leslie and I are going to both attend and plan to attend moving forward as a great way to kind of convene with like-minded people, explore other communities and what they're doing, and a lot of lessons learned. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Anybody has any questions?
Okay. The other increases on here are under materials and supplies, and that is for our community outreach. We want to do more with that and then programming, and then this kind of goes back to placemaking and the supplies needed to execute some of the aforementioned projects.
Okay, we'll go with Deputy Mayor Depot first. I'll go to you next,
I
Councilman
got
Moore.
one more thing, just to,
Okay.
for the grants, I just wanted to let you guys know that we have awarded one a grant for this year. We have 2 applications in the pipeline, and we have 3 draft submissions in the works. And these are all of those are for the minor facade improvement. We have not had anybody take advantage of the business off-cost grant this year.
Deputy Mayor Depot, you have the floor.
So I see that there is a line item for Community Development Beautification Fund. And it made me think of the other day when we were doing city cleanup. And you in particular, Mayor, picked up a lot of nip bottles. And I remember that we had a discussion about the revenue from the nips. And I believe that goes to the town, right to their beautification committee, I think. Have we discussed with them at all? I don't think that the town beautification committee does many, if any, projects that include the city. But I was curious if we have reached out to the town just to see if either we could work with the beautification committee to use the funds that they already have, and maybe the Economic Development Department in particular would be probably most aware of where we could use a small beautification project in the city or something like that. But I was thinking that would be a good way to maybe make a little improvement without us having to pull that out of our budget, because the NIP revenue that the town is getting also includes city businesses. So I just wanted to see if we could maybe touch base on that, and
I'll ask the town
because that could maybe
manager.
add some money to your budget for some of those projects to help
Okay.
with beautification.
I'll ask town manager.
Thank you.
Councilor Norris?
So, hold on. The both of you. The public art. So in your budget, can you tell me how much you have through non-grant resources? What you have for public art that you were discussing?
10,000 of it, 2,000 to contribute to the workshops and make sure that those go smoothly, and then the 8,000 would be towards projects.
This is
Projects and artist stipends.
and this is non-grant.
That is purely, yes.
Okay, if you can help me somehow and help the public, we're looking at adding close to $100,000 between planning and economic development. If we could identify, and you have to some degree, what are we gonna have a year from now from investing $100,000? And I guess what I'm looking for is something tangible versus just an idea. If we can somehow present that to us and the residents, because it's hard to say we're gonna add $100,000 and some of it is conceptualizing. And I don't know if you could do it here, but I think at a later point, I think it's.
Is the
worth it.
conceptualization toward just in general,
Well,
or?
just in general, it's $100,000, which is a lot. Between the both of you, your budgets are going up 35, 37%, which is a huge amount of money. But what is the resident getting in return, short term, that is tangible, but not just a sheet of paper?
Well, a quick 2 points. One is, I think we should be careful when we talk about percentages because we are also the smallest department. And so
I don't think
our,
$100,000 is a.
I am absolutely not disputing that $100,000, listen, I was with $30,000 was a lot of money, so I'm definitely there with you on 100,000, no question. It's a lot of money. But what it will get is we're going to have people actually giving, being in a place where they're giving their actual thoughts, their actual opinions about things, and then, for instance, with the zoning regulations, which are not easy to write, but that is about the most tangible, I know it doesn't feel it, but it's about the most tangible thing you can do in a municipality short of, you know, changing a charter or something. It is the rules of the land. And so doing that, having that document, being able to do a presentation on that when it's done and saying this is your document. This is a document that comes from the people of the city. That's where the consensus has come from. That's where the ideas have come from. Yes, there's been disagreement on some things. On some things, everyone's agreed. But that is understanding what the rights are and what we can do to make the land we walk on within our city better will be absolutely something tangible. And the changes that that will make in terms of economic development and people wanting to come in and invest in the city, wanting to come live here, and having a place to come live will be tangible. Right now, we can't build the things people want because the regulations don't allow them. Going back to the earlier example, we can't do it. I can't approve drawings that say you can build an apartment building on Bridge Street, because you can't.
And I would just say, in addition to that, there are some topics that you may not have a tangible product from, like resiliency planning. That is a discussion, and that's going to be an ongoing discussion as we move forward. And the tangible thing might not, the tangible thing will be the projects and the partnerships that form through that, and then how the city wants to move that forward. But then the actual tangible things, I think, would be the public art and actually having those projects done. And then the placemaking is going to be really, really a big thing that the city will see, feel, and experience, especially when we get to something like the Bridge Street Gateway. Everybody is going to feel and experience what that change looks like and be able to give us the feedback of how that works. The public art would be instrumental. The brand management services or the strategic communications, now that we have a newsletter, to me that is tangible. That's something that we're using all the time. And how we now incorporate the brand into the city would be some of the tangible things that we start to see, like the banners. ventures or whatever placemaking elements that the city decides to go down to invest in.
And the banners are here. Like, you can hold.
Anything else on planning or economic development? Okay, just to let the council know, so on May 1st, we have a mayor and council meeting, but we have a special a special committee of the whole, where we will continue to talk about the budget. Finance will be presented, but then we're going to talk about the budget as a whole. And then on 5/8, we have a special If we need that, we will continue to talk about budget. And then on 5/15, I will bring the budget for approval to the council in accordance with the charter. So you got a couple more swipes at it, to think about it, to look at it, to talk about it, and then make recommendations. Okay?
May I add one thing, just to
Go ahead, Chair.
on May 22nd, we do plan to be back to present to the CAL, but we are also hosting a open house, open to the entire community, to come and talk specifically and in detail about the projects that we are working on. And we have also collaborated with UConn, Circa, and the Department of Environmental and Energy Protection to host a environmental justice forum that kind of looks at a tool. Our resiliency plan looks more at infrastructure and projects that the city needs to do. This tool starts to tie in the social demographics and things that we should also be considering or thinking about how to look at. So these are.
Don't mind me asking, what date and time is the first meeting?
The open house is going to be May 23rd from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. and it will be held here in council chambers. And then the other one is on May 24th from 5:30 to 7:30, and that would also be held here in council chambers.
Okay, thank you both. Council,
I think, is it appropriate to get some of these guests that we have on here seen?
yeah, I was getting ready to move
So
them
we
next.
don't,
I,
spend an hour and a half
I
on-
understand your concern.
you know what I mean?
I do. But I wanted to get the budgets out of the way.
No, I know that, but it's
And
not,
then now that we are into the non-budget part, I will,
but even if we did, like you said, if we did human resources, I could see that taking a longer time with questions and everything else. Brew Run and the youth vision.
I understand.
Okay.
Where's Mary?
She probably thought she was,
Nope,
she
right
probably
there.
thought she still had 2 hours.
Hey, Mary, I'm gonna bring you up next.
Can I have Keona, can I do the youth advisory first?
Yeah.
Sorry, Tim. Sure. Okay.
So we're gonna go to Parks and Rec. We'll do youth advisory update first, and then profit and loss, and then Leisure Point Beach sidewalk.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. With me tonight, I have Keona Strickland, who's the chairperson of the Youth Advisory Committee, of which we reestablished last May. We don't have a full committee as of yet. We have been meeting. We had 5. We lost one, so we're 4. They're a 4-member committee of 7. So they have met through discussion at one of our meetings. They look at the mission of the Youth Advisory Committee is established, so the Youth Advisory Committee is established to assess the needs of the community's youth, identify existing resources available to meet those needs, make recommendations to the mayor and council on actions the city can take either on their own or in conjunction with other organizations to meet the unmet needs of our community's youth. So the committee thought it would be nice to report back to you almost a year later since they've met. And so Keona has a summary of where we're at, or where the committee is at, and also see if we can figure out how to get some more people on the committee, because it's hard to work with just 4. And the minute one's absent right now, we don't have a quorum, so, but I'll turn it over to Keona.
Thank you. Greetings, Mayor and council members. So as Ms. Mary has said, that we have part of our process was to first find out what the city was missing. We were trying to target a age group of about the middle school age, up to about freshman, sophomore in high school, because that seems to be the age group that's like missing, that falls in the gap. They age out of traditional park and rec programs, and then they're too young to start working or too young to start an internship. So there's a little gap there for them to have any kind of thing to do in either city or town of Groton. So we did develop a survey that was about 7 questions that basically asked, what do you want to do? Do you know anything about any of the programs that are in the city or the town? And what is preventing you from participating in those programs? So we did have a kickoff event at the city in the park. We had a s'more city concert in the park. Sorry. We had a s'more station. It kind of was a slow start for the s'more station. And then when people see other people with a s'more, they want to know where you got the s'more from. And then direct you over to us, and then they fill out the form. Then we did that again at the City Day on August 5th, and we got almost about 100 total of results or answers to the survey. So what was the top reasoning that we found was scheduling, the cost of said program, transportations to the programs, didn't even know the program existed, and the programs just don't interest me. So we took that back into, after many, many meetings, we came down to about 4 or 5 that were the top of the list of programs that were requested by the youth of the city and of the town. One of them being a movie night, just somewhere out on the beach where they can just hang out with their friends and family and just have a good time. So we were looking at that to be probably around the August time, maybe as a preschool kickoff. Summer's ending, about to start school. Let's have one last hurrah before you go back to the grind of school. So I personally was going to reach out to the JPO production organization to see if they can do that. I know they've done some outdoor movie nights before. Another one was clubs of hiking, crafting, kayaking, and gardening. So we do know there is a hiking group for 4th and 5th graders currently run out of Charles Barnum, and that we will try to get some more information, probably talk to the town Parks and Rec to see about the Teen Adventure Summer Club that they offer there. I do know there's the Groton Outdoor Space Association that sometimes offers hikes for youth, to see if they'll be interested in helping us with that. There's also, some kids wanted to learn a foreign language. Some of them wanted Latin. So we look at that to see if area libraries could do some kind of program that replicated the summer reading program, where you learn a certain amount of phrases and you get a point or a prize at the end of the week, and then towards the summer you get a bigger prize, a raffle for that. And then cooking. Some kids actually want to learn how to cook. And looking to see if there was a way to collaborate with the senior center to offer cooking classes. We know that Town of Groton is currently offering a cooking class at the community center, and see if we can help promote them. So even after all of that, another idea that the committee came up with is just so if the committee could be a centralized location to gather all of the programs within the city and the town and put them in one central location, so that there's one spot a family or a child could go to and say, hey, where in the city or the town is this program? I want to learn how to do Latin. Where can I go in my town of Groton, or city of Groton, to learn Latin? Because parents just want, or even kids just want one spot. They're not trying to do all the searching. So if we can do all of that work, legwork for them, it will make it easier, maybe more accessible for the youth of the program. And that's the summary of what we done. Thank you.
Councilor Norris, and then I'll go to Councilor Carter.
Thank you. That was a lot of work.
Thank you.
Trying to get information from the kids is tough. But thank you very much. Just a couple of questions. Is
So picking up on some of the things you said, have we investigated or looking at, and this may be a question for Director Hill actually, as using your recreation location department as that hub of information? And how do we connect that with social media, website, Instagram, that kind of stuff? So that was question number 1. These are just ideas I'm throwing out.
Can I just elaborate, what Chairman Strickland had said at the end? One of our visions that has come out of the committee lately is where can we put everything? So we are working with, I'm working with Dan Bogues, our communications manager, to see if the city of Groton can get an Instagram page. And then we would work on, the committee would work on how we'd gather the information, the committee would gather the information, and maybe we would work on how we would present it on Instagram.
Yep.
I'd have to learn a little bit about how to do Instagram, but I think some of the members of my committee are a little more versed in it. And it has been an avenue that they've been talking about since the beginning. They also talked about TikTok, but I'm not sure I'm allowed to do that through the city IT department. But so that's where we're kind of trying to, we'll be the center hub, but we'll reach out to like the library in Groton Town and Steps and different places that have youth programs and kind of get it all in a central location.
Sure. And then the last thing is like two questions in one. We've known this working in the town dating back to 1990. Transportation has always been an issue for city youth to get to town programs. So have we considered either, I hate to say this word, duplicating programs in the city or providing some type of shuttle transportation, cost of programs through scholarships and so forth? And the last thing, those were a lot of questions actually, is all of that wrote into fiscal year budget 24?
Not quite sure if the committee's gotten that far with ideas and expectations, because this isn't all supposed to fall on the Department of Parks and Recreation in the city. It's also to be able to look out to other organizations and work work in conjunction with them to see if we, so that way we service what's missing. And when I presented my budget last week, I believe I did share that we do always have monies in our budgets, in the recreation budget too, for new programs and/or activities. So if some, like movie night, we'll probably be the ones, it would be the Parks and Recreation Department, City of Groton, that will host that, taking on the responsibility of putting it, you have to get the screen and you have to do the proper channels of renting the movies. You can't just take your DVD from your house and put it in a CDL projector. You have to do it the right way. And so it's done correctly. So we'll take on that event and host it down at the beach. We found a location where I don't have a whole lot of sight lights that brightens everything up, like we did one year when we tried to do it down there and had the stage the screen all up, and then all the sight lights came on and you couldn't see the screen because it's too bright. But there's a backside of the Z House over an area in the field where there'd be enough places for people to park their chairs and sit and watch the movie. So there are some things that we could engage in once we move forward with, but these were the top 4 things that came out of the survey that we did with the children and their parents. It wasn't just the youth that we got input from. We asked the parents too what they wanted. And the committee did a great job soliciting that information and being proactive at the 2 events that they attended. So hopefully things will come from that.
Thank you.
Councilor Carter?
Good job. There's a couple things that I thought of. The one thing was the like how we look at the city and with our kids. I do know, and just by having kids that live in the city, but also live with their mom. They as a city resident, these kids don't look at their town peers as like, okay, no, this is for the city. They don't, I think it's more of they want the town kids included. So I think we do need to look at possibility with partnering, whatever you want to call it, with the town. For instance, I can see my daughter saying, okay, yeah, I want to go, but so-and-so, she can't go, even though she lives down the street, but she might have 5, 6, 7 other kids that live in the town that can go to a certain event, So I think partnering with the town, and even to question or to look into the feasibility of using the rec center there for our kids, that's not far-fetched. I think that's something that we have to look at, right? Because we don't have, we have the schools, but we don't have a place for our kids specifically to gather. They can't come here and shoot hoops like the town like the town kids can, So that's something that I would like to look at. The other thing would be, is I like the idea of that movie thing, but I know this funding is a major major component to this. But I would like to see something like that as like a series, just like no different than concerts at the park, you know? Why can't, like, why, if the kids know that, oh, every week are you going down to the movie that, a teen-specific or a youth-specific movie of their liking, you know? A place that they can kick it and hang out, you know? I think that that's good. You know, we know where our kids are at and somewhere that they can gather, you know? I think that would be good, specifically knowing that they have something that they can go to. That just reminded me when I was a kid going to the skating rink every Friday, you know, late skate, you know, we don't have that now, but, you know, everybody I know remembers that, you know, that you going to the skating rink on Fridays, you know, so I think that's a good deal.
Just to piggyback a little bit on that, we used to do a Friday night out here years ago. That came out of the initial youth advisory back in 2013, which was open to all the middle school kids in Groton. So the flyers went to West Side, but they also went to Sacred Heart Church, and they also went to Sacred Heart School, and then they also went to Cutler. So it was a nice way to collaborate. We were going to bring that back. The company that we used to get the blow-up bouncy housey things and stuff in the auditorium. The company that we've used in the past has since sold that part of his company. So we're trying to find a new company to do that with. We've also, I didn't realize there's like 300 students in each age group in the middle school, so that's a lot of kids to accommodate in this space, so we'd have to look at a way to do that by grade. But it is something that that the committee looked at. It's just a matter of figuring out how to facilitate so we don't over-stress the space here.
Deputy Mayor Depot.
First question, well, first, thank you for serving on the committee, especially with only 4 of your 7 members, which leads me to my first question, which is there a gap in demographic on your committee that you're looking to fill? For example, I know that you have a teacher on the committee. You have, I think you have at least 1 male, you have 1 male, 3 females. So we would also maybe be looking for another male perspective on the committee. But is there something in particular you think is missing from that committee that might be helpful to like a business owner or a parent or something that you think would be good?
We were tossing around the idea of having a youth themselves come on. So we're questioning the age group that would be allowed to come on to the committee, to bring an actual voice of who we're trying to target. I mean, they might be a little bit older, but they're not too far removed, right? So they might be a junior or senior in high school, but we could ask them, what were you looking for 2 years ago to do that you couldn't do?
To that end, have we contacted maybe like the Honor Society? Because I think you have to have a certain number of volunteer hours when you're in the Honor Society. So that might be a good place to find a person like that.
And to graduate.
Well, right. Oh, I didn't know that you need volunteer hours to graduate high school?
Yes.
Oh. Learn new things every day, because I don't have any kids. But I was just thinking, like, those are the type of people that are going out and looking for volunteer hours. So that might be a good place, but also anyone paying attention if you have a child that's a junior or senior in high school. Maybe we can put that out on the Parks and Rec page that we're looking for committee members, because even the amount of work that you guys have done with such a small committee is really great. Obviously, I'm on several committees, and you don't always get enough people or enough participation to get things done. So I really appreciate that. I was going to echo partly what Counselor Carter said. Maybe, I know that they're not using the entire old Fitch Middle for the community center, so maybe there's a possibility to kind of join forces and see if there's a grant or something to remodel a new space to serve one of these purposes, like the cooking kind of lessons or something like that. I don't know if they've got a functioning kitchen, or maybe that's like a possibility to do that with them. The other idea I had that actually I thought of, because our current police and committee has done kind of traveling meetings. So we did a meeting at the Z House at the beach, which was well attended by people in that immediate area. So I was thinking, I like the idea of having a central, like, this is the location where most of our events are. But one way maybe to feed kids into those events is to have super local events, like I don't know how many kids live down by the beach, because it's a lot of, I think those are a lot of older adults live down there, but like even do an event in like little pockets in little neighborhoods, and then it'll give you an opportunity to advertise your central location, your other events, things like that. If you did like small localized events, might be helpful to get that buy-in in the beginning and let people know that the committee is, you know, fully formed and doing more things. And then I do love the idea of making, I think part of what's going to make the committee successful is consistency. I like the idea of having like a regular, like this night is movie night wherever, you know, whether it be the beach or somewhere else. Because you know, when kids are looking for a place to go, they often will go, oh, you know what? It's Thursday, there's a movie down at the beach. And they might not go every week, but they might go more often if they can depend on that being reliable. That's it for now. I'm going to try to think of someone to join your committee. I'm going to tell everyone I know.
Have you already spoken? No.
Yes.
You have? Okay. Counselor Piazza, then I'll come back to you.
Thank you. Wonderful. This is like my heart and soul. So I appreciate all the good work. I do know a couple teens that I had talked to Mary about that are interested in joining the youth committee.
Okay,
So I know there's a piece that they have to fill out. So that's part of it. And so I'm glad to hear that it's open to that. And I may have one other adult. Part of that too is I wanted to say is, so I'm thinking about like when we say transportation, that seems to be a big thing, you know? So, I mean, I have a lot of dreams in my head, but I mean, I know steps, we as a bus company, school bus company, do drive for steps. And I know a lot of it is within the budget and so forth, but I'm just wondering if we could tie that in also for the youth activity. You know, if we have an activity, so many people are gonna go, if the bus transportation could be something, maybe develop a hub that the parents can then bring them or something. It's just an idea.
Counselor Norris?
I was echoing what you just said with the youth. If we're just talking about diversity and types of people and interest on the group, kids are it. So I would strongly recommend you have a lot more than one youth. And a lot, because youth are in silos. So you pick two youth, you're gonna get this silo versus broad benching out. And then the other thing I was thinking is, I understand and appreciate where one big community, well, there's something to be said about being home. So a lot of the city kids may want to consider doing something in the city as home. So I don't know if there's something you can do in terms of, I think you said something like Friday nights out.
Yeah.
Potentially bringing that back here. I think it's great doing something at the middle school or at the town rec center, and kids mingling, but there's something to be said about staying home once in a while also, and having them bring their friends to their home is a good thing. So,
Gotta have resources though. If we don't have a, oh, sorry.
no, I get it. I'm just thinking from a social aspect.
When I mentioned that, I was talking about as far as, okay, like, you know, the kids that are here, how do we, like, all right, and I'll just go to Brantford, because that's our biggest hub of youth, right? So, you know, I was saying, okay, well, we don't have a rec center, but can we potentially get the kids in the city transportation or a way to be involved in the town services, because we don't have we don't have hoops, you know what I'm saying? And I see the kids from Pequannock Bridge who benefit from the rec center over there, you know, that get to walk there and they get to shoot hoops and chill with their friends every day, you know?
I agree.
And we don't have that.
I agree, but I also think with a little.
That's a bigger discussion then.
A little creativity.
Well, that's a bigger discussion to get some, if we're gonna stay home, we gotta have something to stay home too, right? So if we don't have it, it's a bigger discussion.
You'll be amazed
Any-
what kids want to do.
Anyone
I
else?
got 5 kids, man. Come on, don't challenge me with the kids, man. I got it.
Okay, we're done with this. Thank you. So Tim,
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Big league.
come on up.
I'm ground level. Thanks.
Yeah, I forget you got like 8 kids.
I know. So I'm saying, I'm on the ground, man.
No, onward to, just to give you, I got Tim Lebling, my market manager from the farmer's market, so we wanted to give you a brief update of where things are. We're going into our 4th year of the city overseeing the farmer's market. It's the 8th year that the farmer's market's actually been in the park, but the first 4 years were run by other people. So, we got some, I'm gonna throw it over to Tim, because he's the one who kind of has his hands in this a little more than I do, so, Tim, they're all yours.
All right, thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here. So, first, briefly about myself, I accepted this job about a year ago, and one of the reasons that really drove me to apply and accept this position was because of the market and seeing the market and seeing that it was a community. We've been talking a lot about community, but it is truly a community market. When you see folks coming out of work, coming down to the market, when you see people walking from the local communities down the market. So I really wanted to be a part of that. So, and I was fortunate enough to take on a very healthy market with the goal to make it even thrive even more. And so just a little bit of what we did in 2022 to continue to grow the market. We extended from 16 weeks to 21 weeks of the market, starting in June 13th or June 14th, and going all the way to the end of October. We had 0 cancellations. We went rain or shine, including one torrential downpour day where we sat in a parking lot and we had over 100 people show up. And that was a sign that people show up to buy food. They came there to buy their food and their groceries for the week. So I'll circle back to that. We extended our visitors from 5,000 to nearly 5,900 visitors for the season. We extended our vendors. Our average number of vendors in 2021 was 15, and our average number was 23. I think our highest number was about 31 vendors at the mid-season. We also extended our number of nonprofits, and that's one of our goals is to continue to bring in. We offer nonprofit tables for free, so we're trying to really get the word out to that any nonprofits that would like to come and share their program. We're going to continue to offer that program. And music was back. So it was very nice and we have a full booking of music this year, but musicians want to come, and that really makes a market too. And they come, and that really changes, the whole vibe of wanting families to stick around. And we have the picnic tables, and we have food vendors, and it really makes it a community event once a week on Tuesday nights. I also want to circle back and just say thank you for the mayor and the council members who did attend that market. So it's great to see some familiar faces, and that was a big part of it. The other big, I think, success that we had was we partnered with Griffin Health, and they offered a vaccine clinic this year, and they were very happy with the numbers of vaccines that came through. We extended that through our pop-up markets this year, and we've already sealed them for this year for all season to not only do vaccine clinics, but also do health assessments. So they're going to be attending our markets every Tuesday for 2023, which is exciting. So where do we want to go with 2023? Well, the first thing was that I really wanted to challenge myself and for our market is that we do accept EBT or SNAP funding. And so last year we accepted about $500 in SNAP funding, and this is really the core of I think where this farmers market needs to go, is to how to provide our local community with food. And so because we are the food desert, as you well know, so really one of the common practices at some of these markets is a dollar-for-dollar match for EBT money. So basically, if you come and spend $20, you would get $40 worth of groceries, and that's huge for any family. We've secured one $2,000 donation already, so already we can match a dollar for dollar this year. And we've got a couple more letters out there, and we'd like to extend that. So we'll keep you posted on how that comes out. But if we can give $40 or $60 or $80 worth of groceries to someone who's spending $20, that means a lot more to not only the farmers because they're getting their money, but more importantly to the community members and the families in our community. We've also partnered with Solstice Senior Living to bring more seniors into the market. So they're going to actually be busing folks down, whether it's to purchase food or whether it's just to spend the evening down there, grab a meal or whatnot. So that was another goal. We're going to be promoting Senior Week more this year and bringing in more nonprofits to kind of help them along as well. So you'll be seeing a lot more of that this year. And we're going to continue our advertising and just continuing to grow that local support and that community support. And then we're going to grow that community support a little bit wider. And then we have got some nice events. Fortunately, we have an event, we have a market on 4th of July. So we've got a big band coming in. We might have an old-time baseball team coming in and doing some demonstrations, but we're going to make it a community picnic after the parade. So that's something to look forward to. Senior Week, I spoke of that. We're going to have some other events, including a first responder appreciation night, so we can bring folks down there, and then we'll conclude at the end of the season with a big community fall fest, which is also going to fall at the end of the year here. So we'll have pumpkins and all that great things. So that's kind of my wrap up, and Mary can talk about our budget, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So, yeah, he got the fun stuff. So, just so you guys have an idea where we are, the market last year made $7,840. Thus far spent is $11,957. Obviously, we're kicking into, we have a May pop-up, and then we got June kicking up to get the market really going, but it's not a pay-for-itself program, and I'm not sure our intent was for that to be it that way. Our goal is to get our members of our community access to fresh produce and products during the course of the summertime. So it's doing fairly well, I feel. It's grown every year. We started this, we got this and took the entity of this over during COVID. Our first year was 2020. Where we had 11 vendors because we had to put everybody 6 feet apart, and then we had cones where we had everybody, but we had 400 to 500 people come in because that was their way of shopping. But it also exposed the market to that we had it. And so those numbers haven't changed much in regards to where we consistently have, a good 300 solid people that come every Tuesday to the market. And between getting Megan on board to get us going, and then she had left us, and getting Tim on board, it's just continued to grow, and we're looking forward to some positive things moving forward with this market. So
just a reminder of when I asked Mary to take this over, the group that was running it was down to 4 tents. That's what was there. And they had a peak of 18 tents when Cindy Berry first started and was being subsidized through a grant and those kind of things. And I talked to Mary, and Mary took it over. We found a market master who brought it up, and then she left. And then now Tim's here, and we're continuing to grow, one during the summer, but also during the pop-ups. So we are continuing to do what I think we should do, which is to provide fresh foods to the general population. Now, there's other things that are out there too, but by and large, we do have 2 or 3 farmers that are there, and we're looking to possibly expand that. So, Deputy Mayor Depot.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much. I was one that asked for a presentation about the farmer's market with a summary of what we're doing, how we're doing. I 100% agree. I don't see it as a profit center. I think it's a service to the community, like much of Parks and Rec is. I really love all the new ideas and goals for this coming year. I know Councilor Norris has mentioned several times engaging our seniors. So I really like that we have a focus on that. You said we didn't cancel any markets last year. Did we have any vendors cancel on us during those weather events?
Yes, and so it's always up to the vendors, and it depends on their product. So, say, the candle vendors that have, if it's a windy day, and then there was a lot of sickness, and we still were kind of on the tail end of COVID, so people were canceling, for that. So we stayed an average of 25 to 26 vendors a week, knowing that some vendors would cancel. Sometimes they would cancel because they were at the Big E, and they could only use one, only supply one space at the time. We always will edge on the side of safety, so we will cancel if there's lightning or high winds. And in this particular, during the rain, it was JR Seafoods, it was a vegetable, Smith Acres, myself, and one other vendor. And again, it was really the essential vendors that showed up, because as we've seen, even during COVID, people show up because they want their food. And the farm, that's how dedicated the farmers are, is because, so we won't challenge the vendors if they decide they're not going to show up because of safety. We don't have any written rule. If they don't show up for so many, they get thrown out, because we know it's their business and they want to be there if they can be.
That question probably sounded more negative than I meant it, but the reason I was asking that is, since our winter markets, now we've been doing that for a couple years now, doing the winter ones, have we looked into the logistics of, if that does happen, the vendors know we could maybe have a backup plan, that those vendors that can't be outside in the rain or can't be outside in the wind, that maybe we can have either a secondary or all of the remaining vendors we could do in the municipal building, since we have been doing it now for a while like that?
Yes, I see where you're going. Yes, the indoors is always an option. So if there is severe weather, say a hurricane's coming through, or say that we know it's going to be a lightning storm, we have always said that the indoors would be an option, and we could move inside. Fortunately, we didn't have to do that. Last year was an incredible sunny year. So it was just that one day that was really rainy all season long.
That one day, we had the blood drive here, so we could
Oh, yes.
relocate. There was already an event in the auditorium. The American Red Cross blood drive was moved that week, so I couldn't move.
Right. It was just a
But
thought.
it is an option, and it is something that if we start to get rainy seasons and we want to keep our market, at least people know, like you said, they know this venue, because we're here now in the wintertime.
Right.
Yeah.
And then my last question. So when you initially said dollar for dollar match, that didn't register for me what that meant. But are we advertising that in, not just our regular way? So I read the newsletter because I'm on the council and I know it's coming out, and I check my council email and it's there. Is there a way, I don't know, I'm not well versed enough in EBT and SNAP to know where that is controlled, but is there a way to maybe tie in some advertising to that specific population, to where they know that this is a location they can go for that match? Because if I were getting EBT or SNAP and I knew I could basically double my money, 100%, that's where I would shop.
Correct, yes. We do emphasize that on our Facebook and social media pages, and then we also will be printing up a flyer and circulating that as well, to get the folks knowing that. And then there is a statewide list of farmers markets which do accept EBT. And we are one of the, I wouldn't say we're one of the few, but we are on some markets, just to give you a little example, some markets, the individual vendors have to register and accept EBT as an individual. So you might go to a market and only 4 or 5 food vendors will accept EBT. And then there are other markets where the entire market will accept the EBT, and then they can get their money through the market, and then they can use that for any food product throughout the market. So we're kind of a unique, and that was a decision that we made so that it wouldn't fall on the vendor's expense for the $37 processing fee per month. So we valued that as that was beneficial so that they could get seafood, and they could get meat, and they could get vegetables. So we will be, once we figure out the number and how we're actually going to do that, and roll out the program, we will be advertising that through all the communities.
So my two thoughts were TVCCA and United Way. Because United Way does administer all the food box distributions now, and I know they often have info on other locations to get food or other resources. So those are the first two that come to mind to me, to check in with their community outreach department to see if we can make that connection to help
Thank you very
those
much. I know TVCCA does provide the farm bucks, which come out at the midsummer for senior citizens. But we'll reach out to both of those for sure. Thank you.
And then just to cap it all off, I do really appreciate, I get tons and tons and tons of positive feedback about the farmer's market from vendors and people who come to buy things. So I really appreciate it. The community really, really appreciates that we have a farmer's market here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilman McCabe?
I don't have a question, but I do want to echo what Deputy Mayor Debo just said, is farmer's market is probably one of my favorite things in the city that we have, besides concerts and park. Those are my two favorites. I try to get over as many times as I can in the summer, and I really appreciate the changes. It's very visible, at least to me, in going, and all the changes that you're bringing to the farmer's market. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Carter?
You just mentioned the processing fee. So there's a monthly vendor fee. Is that what that is?
There's a monthly vendor fee or a seasonal vendor fee for the processing fee for the EB.
No. Okay, I missed. Sorry.
Hold on. No, you're right. What you said, you're talking about the EBT fee.
I'm not talking about. I wasn't talking about EBT.
Okay.
I was talking about what. Do we have a vendor's fee? Correct.
Correct. Yes. So
and is that okay? Go ahead.
So there's a seasonal fee
Yep.
of $200 a year, or $15 per week. So there's some vendors who can only make certain events, and they would come in, and so and similar to the season, the winter, it's kind of a drop-in fee. So that's why our numbers kind of fluctuate.
Oh, the winter's a drop-in fee. So when you go, the winter, these ones.
Correct.
These are, you pay as you, like, if you're gonna enter, you pay.
Correct.
And the season is this, well, we're approaching the season, and that's specifically through the fall.
January 13th, or June 13th to October 31st.
And it's $200 for
$200 for the whole summer.
And has it been $200 for the past 6 or 7?
We did increase it, we increased it $50.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
that's.
No, I'm all about the increase.
And yes.
Because I know, there are, particularly, there are different, farmers markets that cost, more, right? For their fees.
For this area, Stonington, Niantic, North Stonington, Montville, Charlestown, Rhode Island, all $200.
They're all the same?
Yes,
Okay.
there's some of the bigger ones in Hartford, Providence. You're
more,
paying upwards to $700-800 for the season.
Yeah, okay, all right. That's all I want to know.
Yes.
If there's, because I know that at the same, like, it's although it's not a moneymaker, but at the same time, we don't, I mean, there has to be something that, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's my question.
Well, like Tim said, we have 21 weeks. So if $200 for a vendor to be there all week, I mean, all season, it comes about a little more than $10 a week for them to be there.
Councilor Piazza.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this wonderful, wonderful program. My question is in reference to the flyer, you say you're going to have those circulated. I think it's a great idea what Councilor DeBoe had said in reference to TVCCA. I forgot the other one that she had said. I was wondering that when the food distribution boxes are done, if that flyer could be given or posted for people at least to have, because people are getting food there. And the other thing is if you would have extra, because I know at our bus lot, we have a lot of people in need. So if I could at least post one there, I would appreciate that. Maybe other people would want to post at their work on a board that they may have. And I just want to know, so vendors that are interested in, joining the farmer's market for whatever goods they're supplying, what's the best way for them to find out, like the pricing, how it goes about, what do they have to do, how do they qualify, so forth and so on?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yeah, we do have a website, and so that explains our guidelines, where our product is. We are a Connecticut certified farmers market, which allows us to kind of get on that state list. So everybody, vendors can go to that site and apply, and then we go through a process of the size that we are right now, we make sure that we don't have two seafood vendors per se, or two even candle makers. So we kind of limit it to the categories, although we do have two, and possibly we'll have a third organic vegetable farmer this year. So they can go on that, they apply, and then we accept them. And really, the way that the whole farmers market scene works is word of mouth from other vendors. So there's farmers markets 7 days a week, and to be honest, Groton has gotten the reputation of the one that people want to be in, especially on Tuesday nights. They have another one up in Montville on Tuesday nights, but people want to be in the Groton market. So we've got a waiting list of people that if I have vendor A, B, or C drop out, they're ready to hop in, whether it's a bread or whatever. So that's really and as I go to other farmers markets, I'm constantly recruiting other vendors, the ones that, I'm trying to get the mushroom person in, and as soon as I lose a vendor, or if somebody can't do it, then I know our meat vendor, they're selling their farm, so I already have another meat vendor lined up, and that's kind of the part of the pop-up, as well as in the wintertime, is that we get other vendors interested, and then we slide them into our summer. So we've got 2 or 3 new vendors from the winter markets that have already accepted positions for the summer.
So how many vendors would you say that you have room for in the summer?
It depends on their product. We always have room for, we have plenty of space. So I haven't capped off, say, we have space. We could fit a good 40 vendors down there, but say, we don't have a mushroom person yet. We cheese. We beg Mystic Cheese over and over and over, and it all comes down to staffing for them. So we'll continue to expand as much as we can. We don't want to make it a craft show. We don't want to make it an antique show, but we want to bring those quality events. We don't do the Arbonne and the Tupperware vendors in there. We want to make sure that these are quality vendors who are making their products.
Right, so what was the website that they could go to?
It's the City of Groton
City of
Farmers
Groton.
Market, yes,
Okay.
under Parks and Rec.
And the only reason, because I know of a couple people I work with are
Absolutely.
kicking off some products that they have been selling.
Absolutely.
So I just want to refer them to this, they already have their platforms that they're already selling their product, but I thought this would be another exceptional one, especially within the city.
Correct.
So I want them to, but just so they can read up what
Right.
you're looking for.
We require a Connecticut sales tax license. We require, if it's a food product, to go through the health
But
department.
that's all on the website?
Yes, and an
Okay.
insurance.
So City of Groton Farmers Market.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm going to get you in touch with Evelise Gonzalez with Rainbow
Okay.
over at Brantford, because Brantford is working with United Way to try to get a food pantry over there, but a lot of the residents come over to the food pantry over at St. John's. So when we're talking about SNAP and EBT, if we can get that information to Evelise, then she can get it out to the general population, and we may be able to get some folks from over there.
Thank you.
Come
We
in.
do have thanks to you, we have the Farm Valuability Grant going out the mid-May, and that's going to include more advertising in our food pantries.
So what the council doesn't know is, I received some information about a grant and forwarded it to Mary, and they're looking at, it's a $5,000 grant, I think, right?
Yes.
So we're gonna apply for a $5,000 grant, and we'll see where that goes. Hopefully, we'll get that grant, and we'll be able to do good things with that. Where am I? Counselor Norris.
So, can you tell me what the expenses are? I think you said about 7,000 or.
Yeah, so, in the budget, we have a material and supply budget, so that comes out of that is like like we have flags and banners and this year we bought bags to sell, so if people wanted to buy a bag then it kind of, out there with our bag with our logo on it. So that's materials and supplies. Contractual services, this is where the EPT funds come out of, so we have EBT, we call it EBT money, but it, they come in, we swipe their card, we give EPT money to them, and that's what they use to buy their product. It's plastic. It's not, it's paper, it's something that we collect, stamped, it's initialed, it's numbered, and we collect that back from the vendor. So Smith Acres might give me $15 worth of market money, and then I have to write a check request for, so contractually, that comes out of contractual services. Also, the musicians, the music part of the market comes out of that. And then the other part is, the part-time, the salary for the market master.
So where does the revenue go?
General fund.
Just to throw out there, is possibility of creating a special revenue fund where the revenue you collect at the event goes into a special revenue fund versus the general fund. And then you could do things such as, and I know the mayor was just, thank you very much, talking about Brantford Manor and getting them to the event, as much as it is Farmers Market, it's a community event, where you could potentially pay or give vouchers for bus transportation, Uber rides, additional discounts beyond SNAP and what they get on their food service. In addition to sparking a deal, I don't know if there's an expense to it, providing transportation for the seniors via the town senior center transportation department. And then the last thing, I got two things to say here. So I do get the opportunity to go around the state of New England, and I visit places, I talk about places. The farmers market here is a community event. Where's the camera? It's an event where city residents can truly go, feel connected, engaged, smile, and feel that they're getting something for their hard-earned buck by coming into the city and participating at this community event. The second thing I want to do is thank the both of you for doing this, because trust me, I know what running a farmer's market's like. This is, but I also want to thank the Park and Rec Department, Beach and Committee and everything. You do some amazing events. The beach, the concerts, the movie nights, the farmer's market. You should be commended for the level engagement that you do with your part-time staff, with your volunteers.
It is not easy. Anyone that thinks it's easy running a park and rec department, they need to try it for 6 months, not just a week. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Piazza?
I'm not sure if this is the form to say it, but I mean, just logistically, when's the first outside one?
June 13th. We're actually going to move, our pop-up market has been on Sundays, the second Sunday of each month. It's going to fall on Mother's Day. Traditionally in May, if the weather is permitting, which we plan on it, we're going to move the May 13th, Mother's Day. I should know that. 14th. Sorry, Mom. And if she's watching. And so we're going to move that outside to get people kind of in that, hey, Washington Park's coming back. So that'll be out in a couple weeks. And then June 13th, that Tuesday, is the first market.
Okay, the only reason I'm asking, and maybe this is not the form, but I'm just saying as far as, because that is a hub for RMMS and for New London High School and other sports drop-offs. So the buses actually enter. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, that we would need to logistically think about that, because we actually swing in there and swing out. And I've been to the farmer's market, and it's, you know, it's busy, so there's really not room for those buses to swing in, swing out. So I just wanted to say for the planning that we would need to plan
Who
how
do
we're
we
gonna.
talk to about that? Because I wasn't aware that the buses came in through the Washington Park.
Yes, we do. It's a hub.
Okay, so who do we talk to about that?
You could talk to the Board of Ed as far as what we're gonna do, or if you want to convey a message to me, and I can give it to the supervisor. That, either way, Mary, works.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that we had hubs in the park for the buses, I'm sorry.
Yep, no,
Is
that's
that
fine.
something new?
It is this year. It used to be
Okay.
at the roller skating rink, and I was
Okay.
actually one that brought it up because it's not the best area, so they
Okay.
switched over Washington Park.
Thank you.
So you started this.
All right, stop. Is there anything else for this? Okay, that's it. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Okay,
Tim.
next thing is Eastern Point Beach sidewalk.
Oh, there's more.
So, currently, we have an RFP out for we have a sidewalk that's been compromised at Eastern Point Beach. It's been undermined. It took us a little time to figure out what was going on, if it was the water coming up over the railing in the sidewalk, washing out behind it, or if it was because it was actually washing out from underneath. It was determined that it was washing out from underneath. It's in the area, if you come up off the beach where the stairs are, we have 4 benches, and then it kind of goes around, kind of where the kids crab and do all that stuff. It's in that parking lot, that sidewalk area, and it has gotten to the point where we have a drop. So we have that coned, we have it painted so people don't trip, but we need to get it fixed. So we put an RFP out last week that's due in on the 27th, which is this Thursday. I was asked by the finance director to bring information to you, the council, so that you're aware of this project, because time is now a-ticking, because the beach opens on the 27th of May. So we'd like to try to get this fixed. I did have a meet and greet with vendors last Thursday, I believe. I had one show up. So once the packet is vetted, we'd like to bring it to you for approval so we can get this project done.
So typically, we would have a resolution. We don't have a resolution yet because we don't have a vendor. And the reason we don't have a vendor is because the closing date is 4/27. So, Ron asked me, Director Uhas asked me to push Mary's, and then I have another one for Bill that I'm gonna get added to this agenda in just a minute, that the RFPs are closing this week. We'll have a vendor and a resolution, and then ask the council to look at it and approve it on next Monday, mayor and council meeting. So we have a need. We know we're gonna get a vendor, and we'll find out who that vendor is this week, and then we'll have that resolution to you, but this is for sidewalk services. When I first got here in 17, we had an issue, 17, 18, where the sidewalks caved in. And so we're trying, now that was because there was a tractor on it, but that was our indicator that we had a problem. We ended up replacing a bunch of sidewalks then. We have indications now, so I want to get these sidewalks replaced so we can pour cement in behind the retaining wall. That way the water's not coming in. And then we'll put the foundation in and then put the concrete in. So that is what this is about, and what Mary's talking about. Deputy Mayor Depot.
So we already are going to have a special committee of the whole on May 1st. Are we going to have that explanation at the committee of the whole or just at the mayor and council meeting?
We're having a mayor and council meeting on 5/1, and we're also having a special committee of the whole. But I will be presenting it to you at the mayor and council meeting, and it will have the resolution like you typically see it with a vendor and the amount, and it's coming out of the budget, out of FY23 budget.
Right, but I mean, right now, we don't have a resolution to move, so are we,
Well, no, I'm gonna ask you to move this item to the mayor and council meeting of 5/1. I haven't got that far yet.
I guess my
do-
question is, why
okay.
wouldn't we just present it at the special cow so that we can see that RFP and the info
Okay,
first, rather
fine, we can
than?
do that.
I think it was so you guys have a little bit of a heads up.
No,
about
I
it.
100%,
Yeah.
I like this,
Fine.
like the notification also. But in my head logistically, it makes more sense to make the motion at the next special cow when we already have the info, plus we will
Okay.
theoretically have had the info for a couple of days, because we'll get our packet and
Yep.
have the information. So I would be
Okay.
more in favor of that, I think it
Not a
makes more
problem,
sense.
that's what we'll do.
And that's
We'll
what
do
we
that.
could actually ask the questions about.
Say again?
That's actual, the special cows where we can ask questions about.
Well, you can ask questions now, but if you wanna know about the vendor, so if you're looking for the vendor, we don't have that yet.
No.
If you're looking for, we have an RFP that is out, that we know the size and the depth and the thickness and those kind of things, so that RFP's out. What we don't know is the final cost and the vendor name. That's what we don't know. If you want, you can ask Mary other questions associated with this, issue.
My only question was, so it seemed like we had problems before, so we haven't this, but
can do that. That's
we're doing things for the water not to come in. So what's our long-range plan that will last? That, will this have to be done again? I mean, has that been looked at in the future, that we're gonna spend this money, and how long are we looking this to last? Or this is going to actually fix the problem that's created?
The goal is to have it, to fix the problem. They're
Okay.
going to take off the cap of the sidewalk, they're gonna
Okay.
fill it in with concrete against the stone wall, so that way the water doesn't have anywhere to go, fill that in, and then recap it.
Okay.
And make it a brand-new sidewalk. And then we'll do the landscaping and fill the holes on the backside.
Okay, thank you.
We did that on the ones in 17, and we haven't noticed any issues since then. In the past, when we've done that, we haven't done the cement. We would replace the chinking in the rocks. Well, what happens is wave action, that comes out and then the water goes through. So what we identified back in 17 is that behind the rock wall, you pour cement to fill that in. I mean, you're not filling the whole thing with cement. You're doing a veneer there so water can't get through. So if the water can't get through, it can't come back through and then undermine the dirt and take it out. So we have seen, are you asking us to say it's never gonna fall down? I can't guarantee that. But with this technique, we've demonstrated that it's worked before, and we're looking at this as a long-term solution down the road.
Right, I'm not asking for a guarantee, but because it's been done, so
Right.
if that's been in a different section, it's obviously holding, so it sounds like a good plan. I was
Yep.
just asking, we're looking long-term.
Right. Yep, thanks. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, well then, in that case, we just leave it like it is. I'll bring it this will be brought up also at the special committee of the whole on the 5th.
All right.
So with that, I would like to get a motion to move, so if you go to you have this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So you have this, right? The next one is Park Avenue sidewalk replacement. I'd like to get a motion to add this to the agenda in this location here, and to have it add it to the agenda in this location here now, so that we can discuss the Park Avenue sidewalk replacement.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, Bill? Yep. All right, so the second sheet looks like this. It's attached to Mary's. This is the Park Avenue sidewalk replacement bill. If you could give us a rundown on that.
There we go. So this stretch of sidewalk runs right in between the fort and the monument itself. It's about 550 feet of sidewalk. It goes from Smith Street going up to the corner of Monument where the cannons are placed just outside of the fort. It's in very poor condition. It's been like that for some time. There was a little bit of delay on the repair because of some uncertainty on the ownership. We worked with the state, and working with the state's Department of the Surveyor and Records Management, we determined it is ours. We're looking to move forward with that. It would be funded by municipal grants and aid funding. I would like to have that work performed this year. We're looking to, because we are already loaded with sidewalk work with Ramsdale, Cottage, and a couple of other small spots, looking to work with a vendor, and that's why it's going out to bid. So we would do the excavating ourselves. We would then bring them in to set the forms, pour the concrete, and finish it, and we can get in and out. It's a good opportunity for some partnership. We have plenty of work for our own guys. It's just in addition to, just because it became in short, and it's a safety concern.
Okay. Questions for Bill, Deputy Mayor Depot?
Does, I don't know if this is an ignorant question, but does the fact that we're contracting out interact with our union contract at all?
So in my opinion, we're fully loaded with work. This came in over the top as, can we get it done right away? Several vendors, several residents, complained about it. Something, again, that we knew about, but we didn't understand that it was ours. I don't expect that there will be a problem with the union, only because I won't be impacting their workflow or the staffing levels or anything like that.
And can you remind, for anyone that doesn't know already, where the municipal grants and aid funds, where does that come from?
Yep, I can give a quick summary of that quick. So that is State of Connecticut offered monies. This year, I think we're going to get a little bit over $160,000 for that. The main intent of the funding is to supplement municipal infrastructures, railings, stormwater draining. A good example, too, would be what we used for last year. We replaced the salt shed roof. We're going to be installing a police impound lot. Also have carpentry shop. We're going to put a dust collection system in. We did Washington Park's press box with those funds. So we knocked off several really, really good opportunities, or, things where we get funding where we wouldn't have to normally budget. So it's a great thing.
Do those projects have to be approved before we get the funds, or are the funds given to us?
Yeah, so some of them that are kind of iffy, we do have to obtain approval for them, and that can be done pretty swiftly through, let's see here, so additionally pursuant to, if there's any activities that are outside of that or iffy, we have to go through the process and get them approved. There's also a couple of other criteria. They need to be things that provide at least a 20-year life expectancy for them, et cetera, things like that.
Yeah, let me take this question.
Sure.
So there have been times in the past that we've taken municipal grant and aid money to use for other things other than highway projects. And you have to get permission to do that, and you have to give them a reason why and those kind of things. In this particular case, we put this down as a project. We sent it in, and they came back and said it's approved. It automatically falls under municipal grant and aid because it is sidewalks. That was the one, right, Sue? So we did get authorization from the municipal grant and aid money, so that is approved. That project is approved by them. Is that what you were asking? Yep. Okay.
I have one more question.
Sure, Deputy Mayor Depot, you still have the floor.
My last question, or I guess statement really, is for the mayor. So I feel the same about this because I know that I will have questions about the vendors. So
Yep.
that's the main reason why I wanted to have it on the committee of the whole agenda, because then we can ask specific questions, same as the last item, specific questions from the bids, because if it's not on the agenda and we don't do it that way, then that opportunity only falls at the mayor and council meeting, which I feel like that's not the best. I like doing
That's
it at the
fine.
committee of the whole.
Yep, the committee of the whole is typically
That's fine.
where we do deliberation,
Right.
discussion, debate. So we will move this one to the special cow as well.
I wasn't trying to make the process longer. that's.
Understand.
why.
Nope. Any other Counselor Piazza?
Thank you, Mayor. Where again, Bill, did you say this was gonna be, the sidewalks?
So it's right in between, right between the fort and the monument. So running from Smith Street
Yep.
over to the corner on Monument, right where you come out of the fort
Where
and the
the
two
cannons are.
cannons are placed right there.
And what, do you have approximate start and end date?
Oh, I'd like to get that going. So it's out to bid right now. We should have the bids in, I think, within a week.
27th.
There we go.
They're due,
And-
they're due the 27th.
Yep, so once that's awarded, we'll move forward with that. Come back and get approval for the money through you.
And approximately how long would it take?
So that particular work, again, we'll be working with the vendor,
Mm-hmm.
and I expect that it'll be expedited. I'd like to knock that piece off within less than 2 weeks, maybe
Okay.
a week and a half or so.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
You're
So my
welcome.
intent is to bring this to you next week. So you'll see it at the committee of the whole first, and then you'll go straight into the council meeting.
Yeah,
Unless, of course, there's,
Because of all the traffic that goes in there, and you're looking at
Yeah.
Memorial Day.
yeah,
right,
oh, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, there's an issue at the committee of the whole, and then we will move it out.
yeah. And you're right, that we do need to coordinate that with events that happen up at the fort, so we've already started that conversation with them, okay?
Counselor Norris?
Is this the type of work that your guys would usually do?
We do perform that.
So then, if you can please tell me, why would we not extend overtime?
So honestly, I don't have enough forms and all of that to do all of the work. Again, I made mention of Ramsdale, Cottage, so the team will be out there doing that type of work, readying for pavement for next year for that. So we really are at the end of our limits regarding the materials and everything. So I'll have an excavator up there to do the removal and haul that out with our guys. And then we'll do the patching of the asphalt with them as well. This is truly just working with them. They'll set the forms, level it up, pour it, and out.
And this is concrete?
Concrete, yes. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's the same thing that we looked at this internally, because it is one of the things that we do and we do well, is sidewalks, but it ends up being a capacity issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we've been back and forth dealing with this for about a year. And you're like, well, what took you so long? Well, the state said they owned it. And then we said, well, we think we own it. And then they went to one organization. This organization said, yes. We went, pulled records. We said, we're trying to figure it out. We're not sure. And then they ended up going to another, Bill was talking to a bunch of people. Ended up getting to the right place. And then finally they said, nope, you guys have it. So it's yours.
Yeah.
And because one of the things was, we had to ensure that we owned it, because if we didn't own it, and then we did it, we then owned it and owned the liability associated with it.
Absolutely.
So we're also dealing with our insurance agents and our attorneys. There were a lot of layers to this.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, that's it, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay,
All
thank
right.
you. Yeah.
So, Linda, I'm not gonna bring you up next because there may be some questions. Where's Dan? Okay, there's Dan. So I'm gonna bring Sue and Dan up, talk about the website, because hopefully this will be quick, and the brew run will be quick, and then. What's that? Well, it is up to you, absolutely. The length of all these meetings are up to you, so that's good. Okay, so let's talk about the website upgrade. You do have a a resolution in front of you for that with additional information. So whoever wants to start.
So, So we've determined it's time to replace our websites. The City of Groton website went live in December 2016, I believe, and the Groton Utilities May-ish of 2017. In the world of websites, those are actually kind of old. Our previous website was remedial compared to what we have now. We moved to the current websites 6 or 7 years ago. It was a major leap. But now we've sort of reached the point where we kind of need to make that leap again. Our current websites have actually proven to be a little unreliable lately, as some of you probably have noticed. They've gone down twice in the past month. They aren't being monitored the way I would prefer a website would be monitored. And they are based on WordPress, which is starting to become a little unreliable with some open source plugins. So we decided to demo some vendors. We demoed 3, including our current one. And between the 3, without a doubt, we arrived at the one that offered the most functionality. And the price was actually in a good ballpark. So at this point, we're looking to begin a project where we move from our current vendor to Civic Plus, with a project that would probably span about 4 to 6 months and be ready to go by early fall. So that's why we're here.
Okay, questions or comments, Deputy Mayor Depot?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. It is kind of difficult to navigate the site, and because it is WordPress based, it is kind of like an archaic way to do your website nowadays, I feel like. I really appreciate this spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. So it looks to me, the only thing that Civic Plus does not offer that the other ones do is the public record request tracker and public service request app. Do we have that or a similar functionality some other way for those items, or are, because you can't do that now online either, right?
Yeah, and something tells me that they probably do have it. Civic Plus does local government websites. That's what they do. They have over 4,000 websites. If you go to a local government website, if you go to 10 of them, probably 3 or 4 of them were made by Civic Plus. I suspect if there's a functionality that we're looking for, they do it. And maybe we just didn't recognize it when we were going through our checklist.
Well, and on this public record request tracker, is that FOIA?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't make this.
Well, I didn't make it. But the question is, if someone is looking for a public record, there is already a process that exists, and that's the FOIA process, and we track that out of the mayor's office separately.
Well, but wouldn't this be an opportunity to make that easier? Even if it is an email form, like phone and email, like, that's what I'm saying.
You can make any form that you want.
Right.
But that's,
I guess that was my point,
Sure.
was those kind of things can probably be done through one of the other services they provide anyways, because the FOIA requests do have to be detailed, and it probably wouldn't be,
Right.
it might be the reason why it's not listed separately.
it's probably just the wording. I'm sure
Yeah.
whatever functionality that is, we can create it.
So my last, well, is that my last question? There's some very good features that we really, would be really helpful, including social media posting and things like that, because right now, one of the things that I've mentioned to the mayor several times, which is, you know, we've got Parks and Rec has to post their own stuff, the farmers market's also got to post, but in Parks and Rec, but then also on the city page, and all of those things, you know, you've got your department heads all separately having to post things on their pages, and I'm guessing that having a website with an auto post feature would make that a little bit easier, and less work for our department heads, which I'm always for. The annual maintenance fee, well, I guess, and the cost, where is that, what budget is that coming out of?
What we're going to do is essentially split it between GU and the city, right down the middle. So the design fee and then the annual fee. The numbers that I'm assuming you're looking at are actually the design fee and the annual fee blended together. Yeah. The upgrade cost was $21,000. We're splitting that over 4 years. So it'll end up being for year one, $14,597.25, and year two as well, and so on. So yeah, we're splitting it right down the middle. The city website is actually more complex than the GU website, so it's actually a good deal for the city. But the GU website is a sub-site of the city site in this scenario.
And then I think my last question is, are we going to, does this price here include some sort of training for our staff?
Yeah,
So that's included in this price? Okay.
yep, training is included.
I love this idea. I think also with what we're doing with economic development and new signage and all of that stuff, this makes sense. Do we have a goal completion date of this?
We ballparked it early fall, yeah.
Oh,
Early fall.
that's fast. Okay.
Well,
Awesome.
it's a undertaking, and there's a lot more to this website. There's a whole online form center, so we'll be able to do a lot more online forms than we used to be doing. There's an agenda center, which I think everybody here might be excited about. You can subscribe to agendas from particular committees that you're on. It'll be automatically
that's
emailed
cool.
to you. What were you gonna say? You
That
talk.
was it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna get notified when the agenda's posted.
Can the public, so the public can also do that?
Anybody,
So
yeah,
if-
not just a counselor, yeah, anybody.
Oh, that's awesome.
Staff directories, a bids module, ADA compliance, it forces you to be ADA compliant, and Google Translate, so up to 100 languages.
Oh,
So, yeah, we're both very excited about it.
it sounds very cool. Thank you.
Counselor Norris?
I have Civic Plus, I know pretty much about it. It's the same as, you're gonna get out of it, what people put into it. Not everything is automatic, because people have to sign up to do stuff or to receive stuff. But my biggest question is, if this is a citywide program, where does Parks and Recreation fit in? Because I understand they have a totally separate system that they use for reservations and registration, and I'm just thinking, why not do the whole kit?
They use something called Rec Desk, which is a separate service. There is a Parks and Rec module as part of Civic Plus. I'm not going to tell someone that they have to do it or not. It's there. I'll have a discussion one day, I think with Mary, who's sitting right behind me, staring in the back of my head as I'm saying this.
I'm not just assuming that conversation happened.
It has been mentioned. It has been brought up. One thing at a time, I think. Let's get the rest of the website going. Rec Desk is doing a fine job. Me, personally, would love to get it all on one platform, just for how things connect and work together.
Just because you're talking about social media, you have it separate right now. Where if it was together, the synergy of the social media and posting and also the email blast, it's just seamless. So that's why I was just asking.
I agree.
Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Depot?
I just want to echo what Councilor Norris said. I think that we should have, if we're going to be paying a company to train and move everything over, I don't think it makes sense to delay one department over another if it's all going to be, because if we do it at a later date, then we've got to either have someone in-house figure out how to do it, add that, design it, and then train. I don't think that makes sense. That's just my opinion on that. I feel like it should all be done at the same time.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. I would like to have a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of 5/1/23.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, thank you, Sue. Thank you, Dan. Dan,
Thank you.
stay there. Brew run. So we have a motion. We did this last year for the brew run. This is, because you can't have alcohol at Easter Point Beach, so we bring it to the council for an exception. And that's what this is. So who wants to take the lead on this?
Okay.
It's off. Make it green.
Thank you. Okay, the Groton City Brew Run is going to be on September 9th this year. We do it the first Saturday after Labor Day each year. Last year was our second event, and it was very successful. We had over 270 runners and walkers. 330 people were at the event, 5K race, and Brewfest, live music, food trucks, and all that. So it was great. We're hoping to do even better this year. We're already meeting and organizing it, and so we're here to ask if we could have the exception for having alcohol at Eastern Point Beach on September 9th.
Any questions or comments? Are you gonna?
I was just
Well, once
wanting
you
to.
guys figure it out, put your hand up. Is that you? Counselor Norris,
I
you
just
have the
want,
floor.
do you have an idea how many city residents participated?
I don't have a breakdown.
Okay, all right.
It would be interesting to know how many people we're bringing in from out of town.
We did have a discount for the city residents last year.
Yeah, the chamber might have that number. You want me to try to dig that out for you? I'd like to know too.
It's just interesting tidbit.
Any other questions or comments?
No, sir.
Okay, and I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of 5/1/23.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you both. All
Thank
right,
you.
Linda, you've waited long enough.
Are you sure it's my turn? Do you want to check?
You can go back and I'll call you back up again if you want.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, council, mayor, deputy mayor. It's so nice to be here. I am back again with vacation and trying to obtain some additional time for the staff. As I said before, I think it was about 6 months ago when I was here last, talked about the fact that people coming in, especially the younger crowd that are coming in, vacation time is very important to them. And I think it's something that we should probably take a look at and ask for your permission to increase. The first grouping that we have is our hourly people. For some reason, they used to be started off at 15 days per year. And back in 2008, I believe, they were decreased from 15 to 10 days a year. And recently, in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, we've had people, especially last year, we've had people who have turned down jobs with us because they were not excited about having 2 weeks off during a whole year. And so we started looking at that, and we are asking the council to allow us to increase it from 10 days to 15 days. Do you have the paper? You don't have the, really? This one?
Now you have this.
Oh. Okay. I'm sorry. I
Do we
thought this
need-
was.
I'll shoot my copiers down.
I thought this had gone out too. Okay, so I can send this to you if you'd like tonight when I get home. Okay. The next category is for salaried positions. We have not had anything different for our salaried folks. We have 11 of them in the city now. And again, I didn't say this in the beginning, this is for non-union employees. There are about 56 non-union employees. And we've had salaried people, but we've been adding to that roster for the last couple of years. So I think the fact that people who are salaried normally work more hours than the 45, some 50, and really don't have anything to show for that extra effort and time,
So we took a look at the vacation time again for this, and I would like to make their 1 through 5 years 15 days a year, like the hourly folks. But then after they've completed 5 years, at 6 years, they start with 18 days, which will carry on through their 10th year, and then their 11th year, they go to 20 days with a 25-day max after 15 years. And the last category is management. So currently, they start at 15 days per year. That's going to stay the same. Then after 5 years and the 6th year, they started with 18 days per year for the next 5 years. I would like to move that up to 20 days. And then the problem that I think the council had the last time was that we wanted to increase the senior management vacation from 20 days at 11 years to 25 days. But there was a concern that a lot of people don't take their time because we're all pretty skinny staffed. And a lot of people have to do a lot of the work themselves. There's no one to share with. So they are not able to take their vacation time. And the issue was that we were allowing people to sell back their time, which was costly, and I think that was your biggest issue. So if we are allowed to go from 20 days to 25 days at year 11, we will no longer allow a sellback. So that's a trade-off. Okay? And I did a survey of the towns and cities because I'm hooked up to this listserv with HR directors, and out of the, 160 we have? About
69, yeah.
a little over 50 responded, which I thought was great. And we're not ahead of the crowd, for sure. We're probably we're somewhere in the middle. And it was difficult to put a report together because they're all over the place as far as, some of them will have, between this year and this year, we do 1 day per year, and it was really hard to quantify that. I didn't have enough time to really look at it. But I can tell you that the 20 days at 10 years is a pretty popular amount. 72% of the people who responded do give out 20 days at the 10-year mark. So like I said, we're not too far off. And so, again, I would like to request that we allow this increase. It's not a huge increase. And without the sellback, I think that eliminates the biggest problem that you had with that. Yes? Oops, no, he's going to say yes.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. This is my meeting. Are you done?
I'm done, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Are there questions or comments for Linda? Deputy Mayor Depot.
So I was one that did not have a problem with the buyback for many reasons, one of which is if we are not going to allow buyback of time, have we looked into potential blackout days for vacations? Because in my experience, what happens when you can't buy back time is staff will not use their time during the year, and at the end of the year, they'll take all their vacation time. And if we have all the staff do that, we're going to have a staffing problem, which is part of the reason why I like buybacks, because if you're in a department that is short-staffed and you have to work, you may not have the opportunity to take a vacation, or you may not feel like you can take a vacation during the year during regular vacation times. So what is our solution for that potential problem? Have we thought about it? Do we think it's an issue? Do we not? It might not be an issue.
It's, I think we had 8 or 10 people do sellbacks last year on the management side, not the rest of them, just on the management team, because I think that's where the issue was. I wanted to give management 5 more days after the 10th year, and that seemed to be an issue because the comment was that if they can't take it now, how are they going to take it if you're giving them 5 more days? So, we talked about it amongst ourselves, and I think that letting the sellback go is a good transfer to go into the 25 days. I get what you're saying. I'm not sure how many people would actually take it if they knew they couldn't sell back. I know some definitely could not take the time off, because whatever happened at the end of the year, like I remember our IT department, that something happened where they had to go through and do some work, and they couldn't do it any other time. And so what happened was he carried it over to the next year. We are allowed to still carry over to the next year. That's helpful. It's better than not being able to do anything with it.
Okay,
And
and
we're really hoping that people will take their vacation time. It's just sometimes, it's not bad working from home on vacation and working, because no one bothers you.
Well, and this is something we could socialize at the department head meetings.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
start
Yes.
scheduling and start talking, and, because one of the things that I require is when people are gonna take vacation or be away, I wanna know so I can put it on the calendar, so I can manage my staff. And it's just part of the
I do that all the
management.
time.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Depot.
so my other question is, have we gotten feedback from staff on that trade-off of the increase in vacation days, but then the takeaway
Some.
of the sellback?
Some. No one has said, no, thank you.
Okay.
They've all
Been in
been
favor?
agreeable to having the extra 5 days and giving up the sellback.
Okay, thank
But
you.
that doesn't mean that I'm not going to hear from somebody that will miss that part. It's a, it's a nice,
Is there a cap on the carryover?
yes. Yeah, it's,
It's actually a formula, right?
right. Well, you can carry over, if you're management, you can carry over up to 80 hours. And you can carry over first, and then you can sell back half of whatever is left. So if someone has 80 hours, they will carry over 40. Then they'll have 40 left, they can sell 20. And then they
Okay.
have to take that 20 the other 20 between, I think it's October 1st and the end of the year. November 1st and the
Okay.
end of the year.
Thank you.
Counselor Piazza?
Thank you. So I'm just trying to clarify. So we're originally speaking of non-union hourly employees?
These are non-union, yep. hourly.
Okay,
Mhm.
so you said
These are-
management can carry over 80 hours, sell back half of what's left. What about for the non-union?
No, these are all non-union, but the hourly and the salaried, their max is 40 hours
Okay.
instead of 80.
And so I just wanted to clarify on increasing to 25 days for who specifically?
Senior management?
Senior management, okay. But you said some people would find, I'm not sure who you said, had difficulty in taking the extra 5 days when they couldn't even take the 20. Was that senior management also?
Yes.
So if we're gonna increase 5 days and they're having difficulty taking 20, why would we wanna give 5 anyway and take all the sell back?
Because for-
I'm not understanding that.
Okay, so we have, let's see. Management. All right, I had all these numbers. 50, all right, we have 16 in senior managers. Probably 3 had an issue with not being able to take the time at all. Some choose to not take it because it's a nice cash in the pocket at the end of the year. But for those I spoke to, the 25 days is something that they found would be advantageous, and they had no issue with the sellback. Now, and the 25 is max for the rest of your time here, whatever that is. And the same is true for salaried, and the hourly people max out at 20.
Okay, so when they take the vacation time, is there certain times even for senior management that they are not allowed, certain times of the year that they are not allowed to take vacation?
Not really.
That
No,
happens at our job.
Well, that was the
Yeah.
question about blackout dates. That's something, that's what Councilor Norris
Operations,
brought up.
I'm sorry, yes.
So that's in line with what you're asking. We're gonna look at that, and then we'll socialize it at a department head meeting, or probably many department head meetings, and then in order to get the department heads to take vacation.
Someone like,
Because I'm not gonna let 5 department heads take off the whole month of December. It's just not gonna happen. So we're gonna have to talk about it, we're gonna have to negotiate it, and, we'll go from there.
The-
Well, hold on, were you done?
I think I am.
Okay, we can always come back if you have more. Counselor Norris?
I don't worry about blackout days, it's not even a thing in my mind, because you know your job, you know when you can take off, when you can't. If
Right.
you're asking for vacation during budget season, there's something else going on, so there's that. I do have a question though, with regards to your benchmarking, I think I heard you say 75% of the respondents do give 20 days.
At 10 years?
Okay.
Yep.
What percentage give 15 days for 5 years and less?
Give how many days with 5?
15.
I didn't look at, like I said, I didn't look at the whole thing, because the information that I got back was varied all over the place, and it's gonna take a while for me to put that together. So the only other pieces that I had were 22% give 20 days after 5 years, and 28% give 25 days after 15 years, and 38% give 25 days at 20 years.
So regardless, more than 50% of the respondents give 25 days at some point in a professional career.
Yes.
Or a career
Yes.
with the municipality.
60.
Okay.
64%, yeah.
Thank you.
And as far as covering each other, this is interesting, because when you said that, you can't have 5 department heads. We don't cover for each other, right? I can't cover for Mary, and I can't cover for Leslie, for sure, and they can't touch mine either. So the fact that that would happen wouldn't probably do much of anything unless there was a group think going on or something. So I don't think that's as much of an issue here as it is over at Ops. We have our staff to rely on when we're not there. And Mary obviously doesn't take her time during the summertime. She usually, when her parents lived in Florida, she'd take it in the wintertime and go down to see them there. So I think we're not going to hurt ourselves by doing that. Right?
Okay, Counselor Carter?
I have my 2 cents, because I actually have to leave soon, sorry. You guys won't miss me. So I look at it as a health and well-being thing, right? I think that absolutely, I think the more time that we give our employees is a great thing, right? And I think we should actually encourage people to take their time, right? But at the same time, I don't think incentivizing is a part of encouraging people to take their time. So I don't agree so much with the whole by keep your time and then buy it back thing, because that doesn't incentivize, that doesn't say, okay, take your time. That doesn't promote healthy well-being. In my job, where it's say you have a position where you're an essential employee, you have to be there, where you got some of these police officers, you got some of these firefighters that, have to be there during holidays, and they have to be there at a certain time or whatever, we could buy back our time because we have no choice, right? But if you have an administrative position, right, Monday through Friday, you should take your time. And if there's a problem with people taking their time, then that's a bigger issue. That's a well-being issue, and that's something that we have to look at more. Because if you have 2 or 3 people that really couldn't took time, that's a whole different issue, So I'm for giving the way you had it. And I was one of those people that was like, no, we're not giving people back time to, I'm not for that, They need to take their time. So just how you have it presented, that's just how I'm comfortable moving that forward. The only thing I would say is, typically with the first year and there's, when you're first year on the job, I mean, you're not really taking any time anyway, because you have a probation period and all that other stuff. You're not taking time, So I think that it is a pretty big jump between the first year and the second year. I think, there has to be there should probably be an incentive for those people that are staying in longevity, the 1 to 2 years. It's kind of in my opinion, it's a big jump to just go straight to 15 days for one person for their first year or their second year, in my opinion, I think at the minimum, if you get a day a month, that's 12 vacation days a year, right? I think that would be minimal, so, but the way you have it, I'm fine with it, And I have to leave, so that's my
So that's
two
why
cents
you're
in.
fine with it?
Yeah.
Thanks for
Any
sharing.
other-
Sorry you have to go.
Any other questions or comments? All right, if not, I'll take a motion to move the non-union employee handbook salary hourly to 5/1/20, to the mayor council meeting of 5/1/23.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Take a motion to move the non-union employee handbook management to the mayor and council meeting of 5/1/23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Okay. So the last thing, you
Can I
can
be
go if you
excused?
want. Yep.
Thanks.
Because the last thing is informing.
You want your pen?
Do you need it?
No, go ahead.
This is on the Branford Manor update. Counselor Norris, you had asked for this a couple weeks ago. So let's go for a ride. All right. So I have information here from Ledge Light. I have information from Branford Manor themselves, from a related company. And I have information from Walter, our building inspector here. And in addition to that, so I want to lead off with, I think all the council knows that Related is now in a class action lawsuit. And one of the things that we were given is we were given this. This is an FOI request that we are starting to work on. And you can see it's fairly extensive. It should have Carmody on the top. Okay, so I wanted to let you know that's where we're at. We have several, we're in the middle of several FOIs that we have now, but this is probably our biggest FOI, although some of the information in here, we've already had a previous FOI on, so some of it is going to be easier for us to find. So let's start with Branford Manor real quick. That's this document. This is the document they're putting on their website, and they put out bilingually to all of their residents. And I just want to make a couple things. So they're making steady progress in their remediation work. Crawl spaces, 97% of the units of crawl spaces have their hot water and sanitary line replacements, installation, and vapor barriers completed, representing 286 apartments, and they're actively working on the last crawl space. That's in building 18. And the reason that building is last is because the attorney that's in charge of the lawsuit basically put a hold and said, this is evidence. You can't do any work on this until we're done. So finally, they've reached a resolution, and now Related is working on building 18 in the crawl space. So 180 of the apartments have new air conditioners installed. They have 442 units, so eventually all units will have new air conditioners. 145 apartments have new two-stage fans installed in the bathrooms. Again, 442 apartments. So what they found during their investigation is that if you get humidity levels above 65%, and it's hot and humid, you have a recipe for mold. So what they're doing in the bathrooms is and they also evaluated, they found that the bathroom fans they had were probably undersized. So they went up to a larger size, and the bathroom fans will stay on all the time. Whether you turn the light off or not, the fan's always gonna come on, and then when you turn the light on, the fan will turn on to a higher speed, assuming that most people take showers and baths in the light. But it will always be on to help remove that humidity. The basements, 100% of the basements, representing 146 apartments, have had their replacement hot water lines completed. Remember, one of the challenges they had was water infiltration. Water infiltration came from two sources. One, from outside due to landscaping, and we'll get to that in a minute if it's not on here. But anyway, the other part of that was the old PEX piping that they had, both hot water and cold water, was failing and cracking and was causing water issues. So now they've replaced the hot water lines. 97% of apartments with basements have had their sanitary lines replaced. Had some issues associated with that. When Town Manager Burt and I did our tour, we noticed a couple of issues with sanitary lines. 86% of the apartments and basements have had the basement windows replaced. If you remember one of the presentations, the basement windows are leaking, but not only that, but the basement window wells were either at ground level or below ground level, so water would go in and then go into through the windows. Now, the other thing that they're doing is they're going to, they've done some landscaping, but they've tied all the roof drains into central piping that's now tied into the MS4, which is the stormwater drain system there. Because what was happening before is the water was going through the gutters, coming right out in the downspout, and the downspout was right there, and you were going into the foundations. So that's another thing that they're doing. So they are continuing to work. They're also doing there's an educational component of this to educate the residents on how mold occurs and then what to do and what they need to do in order to help prevent the mold. So there's an educational component as well. In addition to that, they've replaced many of the office staff. They have a new office manager, Shonda Harrison, that's there. And they have a new maintenance manager that has come from one of the related companies and that headed a maintenance group there. So he's basically establishing a new maintenance group here and teaching them how to do maintenance. And one of the things that I'm going to be doing here pretty soon is going to review their maintenance process and their maintenance management system, because if you can catch a problem when it's this big, it's much easier to fix than when it's this big. And when the Deputy Mayor Depot and I got involved back in May 6th of 22 of last year, I mean, the problems were this big, right? So there's a lot of things that they're doing. Deputy Mayor Depot.
I just wanted to add on that note that the mayor and I were doing a preseason tour of the beach, and we ran into a resident from Branford Manor, and we asked them what they thought about some of the changes, and they made particular comment about the maintenance staff, and that the new maintenance staff they thought were doing a much better job, even just like in not only in work but in communication and relation with the residents. So that was good to hear that the new maintenance manager is making a difference over there too, and we heard it right from a resident. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing I want to bring your attention to is this email is from Katie Baldwin, and then the spreadsheet. So Katie Baldwin is the inspector, is the Legislative Health District inspector that was taking on the mold issues. And she said to date, they've conducted 86 inspections, issued 38 public health orders. Of these inspections, 83 have been closed due to compliance with the public health code. Also, Legislative Health District community health workers have visited every dwelling unit within Branford Manor and encouraged residents to submit complaints if they think an environmental hazard exists. And our community health workers speak both English and Spanish. So they got to the entire population there. The other thing that we're trying to do with Branford Manor is to educate them that the right way to go about any issues that they find is to go to the main office first, file a complaint with the main office. If the main office is unresponsive or does not fix the problem, then they need to file a complaint either with our building inspector or with Legislative. So part of that, we're having to retrain people because the issues were so bad that I inserted, we truncated the process, we inserted ourselves as a government and said, you can come to us. I'll accept an email and we'll write a complaint form out of that email and action will be taken. Now we are in the process from the beginning. Now we're in the process of educating the Branford Manor residents to go to management first, and then if they're unresponsive, then come to us and we'll get in the middle of it. So if you look at this spreadsheet, this is a spreadsheet that Katie gave us, and you'll see that you got 3 that are not done, and then the rest of these are completed. And that brings me to our information, which is here. So the total number of inspections that we did are 281 inspections. 133 are still open, 148 are closed. And of the total building permits issued, there were 49 building permits, 21 are open, 28 are closed. Electrical permits were issued 161, open are 93, closed are 68. Plumbing permits total were 66, 19 are still open, 47 are closed. And then if you go to the next page, we have Brantford Manor rental housing complaints, which is our complaint form, which is, by the way, in the rental housing complaint form is in English and in Spanish. Closed complaints are 40, open complaints are 13, voided complaints are 11. So a voided complaint is a complaint that was issued, but then when we went and did our inspection, it wasn't a valid complaint. And then total complaints were 64. Councilor McCabe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When it comes to closing a complaint, is there some sort of, does the resident have a say to say, yes, I agree that this is closed, or is it just an inspection on the city's part and then we close it?
If the resident is available, because the resident needs to be there when we do our final inspection. So one of the things that we started with this, during this phase is when we close out, both Ledge Light and the city of Groton are taking pictures. So we have documentation of here's what it looked like when we close it out. That way you get out of this, accusations 6 months, a year down the road, oh no, you didn't do it right. So typically the resident is there and we show them what's there, but we don't, if the resident's not always there, if it's somebody else that's there, maybe not, a different person than the person who made a complaint, we don't say, do you agree with this? If it meets the code, then it gets closed and it's not an issue. If the resident has any issues, then they can contact us and we'll go back and walk them through it. Same with Ledge Light.
Okay.
So, does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
thank you.
Okay, so Joe gave me, not Joe, Walter gave me a couple spreadsheets, but it came from he's got a special thing that they fill out, and I haven't sent these out, I didn't get these till today, but I didn't send them out. So there's some voided complaints here, there's permits here, and then there's inspections, and one of the reasons is that when you look at the inspections, it's listed by unit number. And so you'll have a fail and a pass. And so it's like, wait a minute, what are we doing? Well, it initially failed inspection, and then you come back and you did the final inspection. So they are, let me define they. The building inspectors still have several permits, and they're outstanding permits, but they're down there 2 to 3 times a week, and they do bulk closeouts. For example, when they go in a crawl space, they check insulation, they check the hot water, cold water pipes, they check the vapor barrier. There's like 4 or 5 inspections they're doing at one time when they go into the crawl spaces. So those are the kind of things that they're doing. So we are seeing, in my opinion, we're seeing positive changes now. My concern, and I've expressed this to HUD, I've expressed it to Related, because we meet with Related once a week, we meet with HUD once a month. This is a HUD property. HUD, in my opinion, needs to be more involved, and they need to stick with their standards. And one of the challenges that I saw is that they came in and they did what was a REAC inspection, That REACT group is no longer there. They have a different group that's going to do an inspection with different criteria, but more importantly, they inspected 25 units, and 40% of those units had issues with mold, and they didn't expand their sample size. So I had a problem with that, because like in the Navy, when we had, and in private industry, if you're doing a sample standard and you're looking for something, and you have over a certain amount of failure rate, you expand your sample size to find out, how far is this, right? Did we just happen to pick a bad batch, or do we have a larger problem? And so, from the beginning, I was on them about that. We have, Blumenthal's office is also, Senator Blumenthal, rather, his office is also on the monthly call that we have, and John Burt and I are both on there. And so, they meet with Related every 2 weeks, and then they're getting ready to come here on the let me look at my calendar real quick. Either the 27th or 28th, which is either Thursday or Friday of this week. And so Related's gonna be there, we're gonna be there, Legislators gonna be there, and we're gonna do a walk around. So that way, everybody's on the same page. So that's the brief on Branford Manor. Any questions or comments or any additional information you would like to receive regarding Branford? Councilor Piazza.
Thank you, Mayor. On the voided complaints, who decides it's a voided complaint?
Our staff,
This.
the building inspector,
The building inspector.
based
Can I
on,
borrow your pen, Steve? May I borrow your pen? Thank you.
the building inspector based on what the complaint said versus their observation and what the standard is.
And of these, on the spreadsheet and so forth and so on, and so many have been done, on all of them, are these including those who have a civil complaint with
Yep.
Attorney R. Scott?
Yep.
Okay.
It
Those are
includes, it
included.
includes all.
Okay.
So in the beginning, there were some logistical challenges. One of the pieces of information that Jeff Brodsky did not give me is how many people are still in hotels or in hospitality suites.
That was one of my questions.
There's a handful, he told me, during our weekly discussion, he said there's a handful or so of people, not the same people, different people, because they're now in this section. So when they're working on this group, they're pulling them out, put them in a hotel for a short period of time, bringing them back in. So you don't have the issues that we had before. Now, part of the issues that we had before was, and this is one of the things and why I supported Senator Summers' mold bill, was that there are no standards. There's no standard for mold. So what would happen, and there's no standard for sampling for mold. Now, HUD went to the EPA and said, what about airborne sampling? Because that's what the attorney was using. The attorney's still using, to my knowledge, is still using airborne sampling, which is you take an airborne sample outside, take an airborne sample inside. If you do research and listen to EPA and other experts, that is not recommended as a go, no-go test in order to bring somebody back in. So the Related was using the standard of visual inspection or swipe inspections, but they were being compared to a different standard. And that's why a lot of the people were in hotels for a long period of time, because they couldn't reach resolution. And what happened was you end up getting attorneys talking to attorneys and back and forth, and it got complicated and, in my opinion, protracted.
My other question is, as far as management, saying there's new management in, I'm sorry, maintenance, excuse me. So, and it's saying that he's, the leader of maintenance is speaking to maintenance in reference to what they should be doing. So, do they have a policy or qualifications for maintenance people coming on, or are they just trained
So
as they come in?
one of the challenges that they had, so I'm going to answer it by telling a story, and then I'm going to get you there. I will answer your question directly. So they had a problem finding maintenance staff. So they would do openings and anybody would come in, okay, good, you go. I sent them an email and talked about, they need to determine what capabilities they're gonna maintain in-house and what capabilities are they gonna farm out. And then if you're gonna have, for example, they need to go in there and they need to break it down by, you have electrical, you have plumbing, and plumbing is potable water and then gray water or brown water, the sewer part. You also have HVAC. And you need people that have specific skill sets. Now, you can have people that hope that, for example, one individual may have expertise in more than one thing. What they've done now is that, so I went to Related and I said, look, you own multiple properties. You have a ton of people, a ton of experience. Why aren't you tapping those guys and bringing them in here? So what they did was, one of the guys that was a leader, the lead at one of their places, they brought him in, and then he brought some other people in, and now they're here. They're not here for the short term. They've actually moved their families here, and they're here now for the long term to be part of this solution. And then they have a training program that they instituted. I don't know if they had one before or not, but they now have one. Something else that I talked to them about was having a maintenance standard. And what a maintenance standard does is so that if we go to conduct an inspection on this bottle, the same person has a checklist and they look at this. And then I give it to you and give you the checklist, and you use the same checklist to inspect. So you try to take the subjectivity out of the inspections so that everybody's doing it consistently, and you get consistent inspection from me looking at this one versus looking at that bottle, and you looking at this bottle and that bottle. We're all doing it the same. So that's the standards that they're incorporating now.
Thank you. And where was it that was, I saw, I think you mentioned it in reference to educating the residents in reference to,
Yeah, go back to the Branford handout that I gave you.
oh, it's in here, I think, about
Yeah.
working daily to address sources, but we need your help to keep apartments free of excessive mold.
Right, and if you go to the next page, that's that. And also, Evilise Gonzalez is with Rainbow. She has different programs that they're offering. Well, the Rainbow is there not to educate for mold. Rainbow's there for financial assistance, how to get a mortgage, how to buy a house, how to get education. I mean, she's a resident services coordinator. That's her title. And that's what they have that they didn't have before.
So in here it says, to report anything, and it goes on to say, any evidence of mold or mildew-like growth that cannot be removed by simply applying a common household cleaner. I'm kind of not in agreement with that, because you can remove mold and it can return if you have, it could be behind, it could be something else, it could not be the fans. And reference to the fans, how loud are the fans? Has anybody turned one on and listened to how loud they are?
Well, I'm sure they have. I don't know what the SOM level is, but
Well, I'm just thinking about people sleeping if they're continuously going, Is it like a white noise kind of fan, or is it like, I have one in my bathroom, we have to shut it off.
You need a new fan. So.
No,
they-
it just
they
needs to
have
be
not-
tight, and we've done it a couple
They have
times.
not had any complaints from any of the residents over the fans.
Okay, there
Or
hasn't been
any of the
complaints.
issues that they have done to improve the quality of life of the residents down in Branford.
And hopefully my last question is, I know one of the biggest things that was on the Branford Facebook page and by some of the residents that came and spoke was in reference to, and I might not have the right verbiage, but in reference to, is it the tax break that Related is getting? What's the update on that? And, something reference, what is it called, the tax break, the tax, something they're getting.
Okay? Thank you.
Tax incentive, so is that still the same, or has that changed, or is it in discussion? Because I know that was a big complaint.
Okay. Where do you think it is?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
What action did this council take? What action did this council take?
Approved a default on it.
This council and the town council approved and put them in default. Now, let me define default. The default was tied to the deficiencies by Ledgelight and by the building inspector, so that if they're not meeting those, they have, I think it's 15 days in order to get them done, or they're gonna lose everything. So, and then we could actually terminate the tax incentive agreement. Now, there were some people that said, hey, maybe we ought to do that. The problem is, and we talked to HUD about this, HUD does not have 442 available units in New London County to relocate people. So HUD was interested in making this get fixed, and that's why I went to them and said, look, I need a hammer. I need some help here. And HUD got involved, and through John and I, our interactions with HUD and with Related, we were able to get the work done that we needed to get done.
So I remember in that when we found a fault, but it was like by a certain time, but then they asked for an extension. So basically, a lot of this work has cut off that action by requesting extensions on certain jobs that either they didn't foresee were going to take longer, or that are taking longer, whether it's they don't have the employees to do it, or the time, or it needs more time. Am I understanding that's correct?
So, partially. Anytime that they felt that they could not meet for Ledgelight, because the mold issues were basically the Ledgelight issues. Now, Ledgelight also had some material issues. Our issues were mostly material in nature. So when they had an issue with meeting the deadlines, they would ask for an extension. And then Ledgelight would evaluate, and then based on their reasoning for an extension, they would grant extension or not. And if they said no, then they needed to hurry through and get that fixed. So
our vote on the default, how long does that last? We'll find them in default, and if they don't, and it came down to that they were gonna repair things, how long is that effective? Our vote on that? Are we gonna be in default forever?
Right now, there is no end date.
There's no end date.
The
So we don't
council-
revisit it at all? We're just.
No, I didn't say that. I
Okay.
didn't say we didn't revisit it. What I
Well, I
said
was just asking.
there is no end date. Okay? The expectation is that once these deficiencies are complete, they will come to us and say, we want to be out of default. And then John and I will then come to the councils and say, what do you want to do?
So deficiencies that were documented as of what date? Up to what time?
From the beginning.
Right, but like,
Till
say somebody
now.
does a deficiency
Well, once
tomorrow.
so
does
once
that
we
count
get
or
these
no?
deficiencies complete,
These
and we go-
documented ones.
these documented deficiencies
Okay.
complete, and Ledgelight, there's 3 left out. Once those are done, then I think John and I will come back to the council and say, we need a motion that they're no longer in default, and then they get their incentive, and then if they don't, during our annual inspection, if they not meeting everything, we can, all the requirements, the attachments, then we could go back and reconsider them in default. Now, are we gonna consider them in default every time one single deficiency gets brought up? No.
No.
Because that doesn't make sense.
So you said if you bring it back to council, is there a certain time that you're gonna give where, I know the deficiencies, but how long are they gonna take to get all the deficiencies done? And so do they have an end date for that, where we revisit with council, which I would propose to do, because we are following up and voting on it? Do we have a certain time that we will be revisiting that
So
and making discussing and
Nope,
voting?
I do not have a time because they're not done. I said, once they're done. Initially, they wanted to be done by the end of February. And then they realized that they weren't gonna be able to make the end of February. And then they said, we're not gonna give you dates anymore, because if we give you a date and we don't make the date of when we think we're gonna be done, then it serves no purpose and it could be used against us. So we're gonna say this is from them. We're doing the best that we can. We're gonna get things done. We are working to a due date. We're working to the due dates associated with the deficiencies.
I agree with that, and I think possibly they're doing the best they can, but I think there should be an end date for movement. I mean, I don't think it's something that should linger. If I'm voting on this and following on it, and it's such a heavy Groton City issue, I think we should have some kind of proposed season that we do revisit it and think about, do we end this default or not?
Okay, so let's say we decide we're gonna vote next month, and they say, and you guys say, okay, we're done. We're gonna go to court, because they're gonna say, you gotta give us a cure time. You gotta give us cure time to fix the deficiencies, because that's in the incentive. And if we don't do that, then we're in default of the agreement, and then they could take us to civil suit. We don't want to do that.
Right, I understand that. So if we have it in there that they have a certain time for the incentive, what is the certain time?
I will
What is
go
the
back
time?
and look and see if
When
on
is
the
that time?
vote, that we put a due date. I don't think we put an end date on it.
Right, so this could carry on for 10 years, which
It's
would
not gonna
be-
carry on for 10 years. It's gonna be done, what month am I in? I'm in April. I think it'll be done. Let's see what's outstanding. I think it'll be, I think, so I'm not gonna go on the record to give an exact date, but I think they will be done probably in a couple months. I mean,
So,
they are throwing, at one point, they had 60 contractors on site, and then everybody was all upset because they had 60 contractors on site. Now, they have a team from North Carolina that they brought up. They got rid of one team because they were not communicating well with the residents and saying, okay, I'm gonna be there tomorrow, and then not showing up tomorrow. So they got rid of that group, and now they have a new team that is doing much better. So they are optimistic that they're gonna get done sooner than later, but again, they're not telling me what a date is. My guess, based on the data that I have in front of me, is that it'll probably be a couple months-ish.
right, so I'm just proposing as a council that maybe in July, maybe after the whole budget thing, give us a little rest and revisit, just a short discussion about it. And, where we're moving with it, because, I mean, if we don't follow up,
Let me
how long
talk-
are we actually let it just hang?
Well,
If we have it in there, you said you're gonna look it up to see what it says in there, that we owe them so much time, that we give, that it's in that incentive, how much time they're allowed to do that. I would like to know what that is, and then are we following that? I mean, that's what we're voting on.
We're not voting.
No, not today, I'm just saying that's, we're voting on this, that was the incentive to find them in default, and so, I mean, I'm just going by
So-
facts that we need,
So
that's
this
all.
is your update,
Uh-huh.
right? There was a request for an update. This is your update. So I gave you the update. Hold on a second. Deputy Mayor Depot.
So,
Well,
I don't get to finish? If other people, when they have questions, they continue.
stop. Hold on. Go ahead and please continue.
Okay, so my finish is yes, this is the update, but it's not addressing what I'm asking, is that what we voted on? I understand that we did.
No one asked me, oh, I'm sorry. Please continue, Counselor Piazza. Sorry.
So-
My apologies.
I'm questioning about, so I, as a counselor, if we're going to be brought up, it's just as much as when we're talking about the purchasing, and we're supposed to go by the charter, the this, the that, this was brought up. We were given facts in reference to the incentive this is where we're at, we were always being briefed, I read the emails, this is what's being done, and we made a vote on that, on a default, according to the facts that we have. So there is something that is written that gives related so much time in a default, and it can't drag on. It's about these deficiencies. So can we get some facts on that, and can we revisit it? When can we get an approximate time we could revisit this? I didn't say to vote on it, but we can revisit so we're aware, and that, I don't want to be into this in, and by winter, and that's
So
like
my-
something's not happening.
So my understanding is your question is, or your request is to have additional information on the default letter and the tax incentive and what the letter said and an end date.
Is it a
Is
letter
that-
or is it a policy? What's
We-
our, do we
we-
have a policy or procedure in our incentive? The verbiage in that?
There's a tax incentive agreement,
Okay,
which refers to the default.
okay,
We issued a default letter
Okay.
based on that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a letter that came from, I think John and I did this jointly, but there's a letter that we consider them in default.
and a timeline for them, because that's what I feel we voted on. This was the letter, I remember we received it, and then this was the timeline they were given, and then they started asking for extensions. So that's what I'm asking, so, you know, we're discussing Branford, so where are we now? Because, I mean, the default just can't hang in the air forever.
Okay? I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Are you now complete?
I am complete, thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Depot.
Well, while Councilor Piazza was speaking, I kind of am on the same line. You know, there was a lot of discussion of the procedure of voting on the default, but not discussion on the closing of the whole scenario. So, my thought is, can we maybe get essentially like scenario A, B, and C? So if they complete everything, we can do this. If they don't complete everything, this is our next step, like that kind of thing. Because I think, like, that's what made me think, while you were speaking, I was thinking, oh, well, what happens if they do this? What happens if they haven't completed it? What happens if they have completed it? Then I think that, to me, would be what I would request is, what are the potential scenarios once their work is complete? Because, so looking over all of this, Ledgelight has knocked on every door. So theoretically, we have boundaried the issue, if you want to use cool industry lingo. We've boundaried the issue because we have surveyed every resident, right? So we have a boundary of what the issues are. So hopefully, we don't get any more complaints related to these specific items that we voted to put them in default for. So once this list that we already have, because we have it boundaried, is done, what are the outcome options? So if they all are completed and our building inspector says, yes, they have completed every single one of these, what's our next step? If they are not completed and we're pushing past a year past, you know, the initial date of this whole occurrence, what are our next steps or next options according to the contract? Because we have to follow the tax incentive agreement contract. I do think, I am guessing that Related is going to initiate a conversation once they're done to say, hey, now take this off our backs, because they're not going to want the default right, you know, over their heads. So in that case too, if maybe part of that is like, if Related comes to us and makes a request according to the contract, like what would that request be and what are our options with it? I think. That's what, because I was kind of thinking the same thing, like we need to know so that we can marker with Related, because also that's part of my concern is I would like to be able to have a time where we go, okay, Related, we're done now. I think that would be, and I think that would be helpful for residents too, to know like the issue so that they can come too, so that if there's any residents that don't think it's complete, they can come and say, hey, I know it's been reported that it's complete, but it's not, because I think it also gives an opportunity to residents to speak up and say, wait a minute, I think we're not on the same page. I think, does that make sense, Mayor?
There's a lot. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go review the tax incentive agreement. I'm going to review the default. I'm going to review the letter. I'm going to talk to John, and then I will brief council. That's what I'm going to do. If you have additional questions after that, then I'll go back and do some more. Counselor Norris.
I think a part of this also, if it does extend beyond a reasonable period of time, and we're talking about that tax exemption, is also what is Ledgelight doing? Because at that point, and Ledgelight always has the right to provide a summons and get them to court. So there's all of those pieces that fall together into play. So you did bring up a point that we should investigate and think about over the next 6 months or so.
Counselor Piazza?
Thank you. So I appreciate Deputy Mayor's comments. I think that's a good idea, and Councilor Norris. So just to kind of not rehash it, so to recap, so, but something that you said is that you said in a year's time, so I'm assuming that you'll get the time that we have in there. I feel as a counselor, and it's constantly stated in here, even in the recordings, that we're here for the constituents. So if, and we even see this in our own bills, in our own contracts, things that we sign, things that we do, that, you know, we have this person doing this and this and this, but the contract says, after 60 days, after 6 years, blah, 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 this is what's to be done. And so you know, if I'm voting on something that, what I was given, what I read in my emails and what has been presented, that we did this default thing, I just want to make sure that we're following that correctly. That's just, you know, that we're voting that correctly with facts.
Okay. Any other question or comments regarding this? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, council, for coming out.